Order. I'm the County Administrator, Matt Walker. And as many of you probably know who've attended January meetings, it's customary for the County Administrator to open the meeting and then call for elections of the chairman for the ensuing year. But before I do that, I'd like to ask Betty to read the electronic notice, electronic meeting information, please.
On March 31st, 2020, the Middlesex Board of Supervisors ratified a declaration of emergency issued by the county's Director of Emergency Management and adopted an ordinance to ensure continuity of county government. A copy of this ordinance can be found on the county's website under Board of Supervisors Ordinances number 81. These procedures include the ability for the Board of Supervisors and other county public entities to conduct electronic meetings. Information on how to access these meetings by video and telephone is posted on the county website. This ordinance was extended on May 5th, 2020, and again on November 4th, 2020. The provisions of the ordinance and electronic meetings is in effect for a period of 6 months unless amended, rescinded, or readopted by the Board of Supervisors. An audio recording is being made of the meeting, which will be linked from the county's website. Notice of the meetings along with access information has been posted on the county's website and at the front of the historic courthouse. Electronic meeting link was also sent to those persons that have asked to be part of the board's agenda list. As each person joins the meeting, the public audio will be muted to avoid background noise and the board and staff audio will be open. If a meeting calls for public comment, the chairman will announce that the meeting is open for comments and public lines will be unmuted. Those with an audio connection should use *9, which will notify the moderator that you wish to comment. To unmute your own phone, you should use *6. Those with video capability are to use the raise hand feature to be recognized by the chair. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak, and each speaker must identify themselves when speaking. All votes will be by roll call and recorded in the minutes. Board members who leave the meeting or arrive must verbally note their attendance. If all board members are not joined by video, a roll call will be made every 2 hours to confirm a quorum.
Okay, thanks, Betty. With that, if there are any questions regarding that? Okay. Well, then I guess we'll move right into our nomination.
Taking a roll call. We have to take a roll call.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you. Can we do a roll call, please?
Mr. Koontz?
Here.
Mr. Mansfield? And you are muted, Mr. Mansfield.
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Here.
Mr. Jesse?
Here.
Okay, and I guess I've skipped over something very important too. Reggie, would you care to lead us in a prayer, please?
Okay. Let us bow our heads. Think back briefly of 2020. And thank God that we made it to 21. Oh, Heavenly Father, we come once again. Father, it's a new day. It's a new year. Father, it's a day and a meeting that we've never done before. Father, give us the strength that when we go on to do small government, Father, that we can be in unity, Father, in the way that you taught us. Father, we thank you all for being God and being God all by yourself. Father, continues to strengthen us, make us to be wise in what we have to do and what we have to say. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen. And Wayne, would you care to deliver the Pledge of Allegiance? And I'll shut my video down so we have our flag.
Yes, I will. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
The United
the United
States
States of America
and
and
to
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Wayne. Okay, and now it's time to call for the election of chairman. Do I have nominations for chairman for the Board of Supervisors for 2021?
I do.
Okay,
Mr. Walker, I would like to nominate Wayne Jesse to return as chairman and thank him for the commitment that he made during a difficult year conducting every meeting through different technologies, adequately preparing the board for these meetings, staying in touch with the pulse of the county, and his continued support on growth initiatives in the county. And do I have to make a separate nomination for vice chairman?
we'll do that one separately. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, having a nomination, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, here in a second from Mr. Williams. Any other nominations? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of Wayne Jesse being chairman of the Board of Supervisors for the year 2021, say aye. Oh, excuse me, we got to do the poll. Betty, would you poll the board?
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Abstain.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
and Mr. Jesse.
Aye.
Okay, 4 with 1 abstention. Wayne, congratulations. It's a hardy job that you're taking on again. Hopefully 2021 will be much better than 2020. I'll
Right.
relinquish control of the meeting back to you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone, for supporting me as chairman for last year and for this year. I know 2020 was a tough year, but we have a better year this year in 2021. All right, this time, I would like to open the board for election for vice chair. Do we have a motion for anybody for vice chair?
I have a motion.
All right, we have a motion by Ludd.
I'd like to move that Mr. Kuntz be elected to vice chairman, and I'd like to thank him for the diligent work that he accomplished in 2021, including the rebuilding of Wake Landing, the leadership of Middlesex County to replace our bus fleet with electric buses. We were the first school transportation system where every school is solar powered. The accomplishments he made in broadband and his representation on the jail board and other extracurricular contributions to the county.
All right, we have a motion by Ludd. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion by by Ludd, seconded by Reggie. Any more discussion? If not, roll call for John Kuntz as vice chair.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Coons,
Abstain.
and Mr. Jesse.
Aye. All right, well, congratulations, John. I see you riding back. I'd just like to say, John, riding back from Georgia, and appreciate you joining on with us. I know a lot of things going on, and safe travel. Next, we're gonna have established a time and place for a regular meeting, as like it's always the first Tuesday of the month at 3 p.m., except for in November. It will be on the 3rd, because the 3rd of November. Do we have a motion for the times and place of our regular meetings?
And those would continue to be Zoom meetings or electronic meetings
Yeah,
until the board rescinds that ordinance and we can go back meeting in person.
right,
Then they would be in the historic boardroom.
okay.
I move that we will leave the meetings at the same time, the first Tuesday in each month.
All right, we have a motion by Reggie. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion by Reggie, second by Ludd. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. Motion so carried. Next, second on the agenda would be the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the agenda on page 3 and 6 of last month. And then also the disbursements and payroll. And also I would like to have addition to the agenda will be executive session, which would be at the end of at number 11, at the end of our meeting. We have addition to the meeting. So do we have a motion for the consent agenda with the additions?
So moved.
We have a motion by Reggie. Reggie, do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion by Reggie and properly second by Lud. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. Motion so carried. Next line item will be the public comments. The chairman will invite each and additional person other than the board members and staff attending the meeting to make the comments. Those attending the meeting with video capability will use their raise hand feature to request to speak. Those with audio only capability will use the *9 feature on their phone, which will indicate that the moderator that you wish to speak. Use *6 to unmute your phone. Each speaker will be given his or her name and address for the record. Each speaker or individual will be given the opportunity to speak during the public comment period and our public hearing item. All comments and remarks will be addressed to the Board of Supervisors and not the audience. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to speak. Kevin, do we have anybody that wish to speak to the board as a public comment is open?
We do, and the first person will be, let me go ahead and unmute their connection now. All right, Ms. Reed. You can go ahead.
Who did you say?
Ms. Reed, yep, it's you.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Hi there, my name is Penny Reed. My address is 208 Lord Mott Road, Urbana, Virginia, 23175. And what I came on here today is to ask, what would it take for my neighborhood, which is Lord Mott Road, to have mailboxes put outside of our homes? We have had many problems with Urbana Post Office sending our mail back. Most recently, I had got 2 credit cards in the mail during this pandemic and Christmas time to help fund our store that we have, and they never came. I called the credit card companies and they said that they were returned to sender. We don't have a mailbox. So when you apply for credit cards, you can't put a post office box number in there. It doesn't allow you to do that. I called 4 other postmasters within the surrounding counties, even called one in South Carolina. I thought I was calling Saluda, Virginia, but I called Saluda, South Carolina. All the postmasters said that they would have put those in my box. Our postmaster, which is Miss Longest, has had many run-ins with many people that I have overheard with me over her rudeness and disrespect. Matt Walker, you are privy to one, that a lady that came to our store who had a boat, who had big problems at that post office with Miss Longest. And I gave her your number to call because I didn't know who else to contact. There has been several people that have come in our store that has come here from out of town that had their mail come here that has had complaints about that post office. I'm complaining also, and this cannot continue. She sent credit cards back that I tried to get again, which said I can't, which at a lower dollar amount, or I can't because they're still showing on my credit report. So I think that she did it being just being spiteful. I believe she has a problem with racism because I've heard her several times, them talking about President Obama through those doors, through my post office box. I even asked somebody that works there, is this an ongoing thing? And they said it's all the time. So my question to you guys is, what does it take for us to be able to have mailboxes put out in front of our yard so that we don't have to use no post office box, so that my mail and our boxes aren't sent back? I called her and asked her in reference to that. She said, yes, Penny, I sent them back. because they didn't have your address on them. It doesn't matter. We don't have a mailbox. So they should have been put in my post office box. I said, well, why did you put some of our Christmas cards in there? You marked through the 208 and put P.O. Box. Well, Penny, I didn't want to have a long line of people with broom handles out there beating me because I sent Christmas stuff back, their cards back. Well, you know what? My credit cards were more important than the Christmas cards that she put in my box. This is unacceptable. I went to Wavy TV 610. I went to my Robert Whitman. I went to the Better Business Bureau. I went to the whatever it is for the postal place. I'm blowing this up because it's unacceptable. She shouldn't have sent my credit cards back, especially during this pandemic and especially during Christmas time. They should have been put in my post office box. So you're talking to an angry person at this moment because this has continuously happened over and over and over again. And it's not going to be tolerated. Unacceptable.
Well, thank you on that. Like I said, it's just public comment, but someone will lead you in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys' time.
Do we have anybody else, Kevin?
Let me look down the list here, Mr. Chairman. I do not see anyone else with their hand raised at this time.
Okay, I would like to.
I have the one from Mr. Downs that was to be read.
Okay, all right, Betty, read that.
Okay. This is from Dan Downs. The planned repairs to this is regarding Route 708 Fairfield Landing. The planned repairs to this valuable public water access is valuable for small carry boat launch, fishing spot, as a kayak launch, paddleboard, and just to sit or photograph the river. It is a road that belongs to the public, a valuable historic area due to the history of Woodstock and commerce in and out of the county from as far back as the 1700s. It is a great tourism asset. 700 feet of prime waterfront is worth, and he has lots of dollar signs, and should not be traded for anything other than to improve an existing public access location, such as Wake Beach or the landing in Harmony Village in Locust Hill. The county could use these funds from an outright sale to help offset these two spots now under repair and improvements and use less county funds. We will need these dollars sooner than you think. We do not need a turnaround near that location. These funds would also be used for a historic storyboard and depiction of the old landing. There possibly could be offers to trade real estate and or buildings along a public highway or off-road. This valuable waterfront property now owned by the public. Either way, please use caution. I ask you, the board, to allow the citizenry to have input.
All right, well, thank you for that, Betty. All right, I'd like to close the public comment. And next it will be line item 4, constitutional officers. At this time, we have Kathy Thrift and May Burke. It's on page 43 to 48. Kathy, does anybody have any questions for Kathy? Oh, it's Kathy. Yeah, I see Kathy. You have to unmute it. There we go, Kathy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
How are you?
I'm okay.
That's good. That's good. I was just opening it up to the board to see if anybody have any questions for you. Or how's the collection coming?
They're doing fairly well, I think, for the way we've had to collect.
Right.
We've had a few people that got upset that it was cold out there and whatever, but I can't help the weather.
Right. Well, does any other board member have anything for Kathy? If not, well, thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
All right. May Burke, Commission Revenue.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear her?
No, she still, May, you have your phone muted. I mean, your computer is still on mute that I
No,
can
I'm
see.
in here with Kathy. I'm in here with Kathy.
Oh, okay. Does anybody have any question for May? May, how's the collection coming over there with personal property?
Doing well. We're just about to send out tax relief packets as well as the business license applications for renewals for this year. So it'll be a few weeks before they start coming back to us.
Okay, all right. Well, does any other board member
Mr.
have
Chair,
anything?
I had one question for May. Have we updated the tax reduction for the elderly and impoverished to reflect inflation to the extent possible by law? Have we kept that up to date?
Yes, it is being kept up to date. We don't normally get that number until about the second or third week of January. And then at that time, we adjust the threshold.
Perfect, thank you.
Anyone else have anything for May? If not, thank you, May.
Thank you.
Next will be line item 5, agency and staff report. VDOT. I see we had Joyce McGowan. Hey,
I'm
Joyce, how are you?
here. Yeah, I was asked to attend in case there were any questions, I guess, of anything on the agenda. We sent the report. I'm not sure if it made it into your board packet, and but we have been busy working on making sure that the roads are safe, doing potholes and boom axing, things of that nature. And of course, you know, my computer is going to mess up as I'm trying to find something. There it is. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer those. I think in the board packet, we also added the detour route for the 625 bridge so that you were aware of the change that'll happen when the bridge starts in February. And we have we have been doing the sweeping of the curb and gutter around the different villages in the county. I think we've swept Deltaville, Saluda. We did some cleanup down here. And we do have some curb and gutter and sidewalk repairs planned for some of the villages in the future as well. And I will be sending out that update once we have the contractor on board and have those locations. So other than that, if you have questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
All right, at this time, I'd like it open to all board members. Do you have any questions for Joyce?
I do, Joyce. I think it would be helpful if perhaps you could update us on the issue that last year was the third most rainfall we've ever had in Virginia. It was only 1 inch behind the second place. And as I'm sure you know, it's created quite a burden on our drainage facilities. And I do get calls asking about VDOT ditch clearing. And I know there's been some progress there, but I'm not sure exactly what the program is. If you could update us on that, I think it'd be very helpful.
You want an update now, or you want me to include specific locations? Usually we put in where we do the ditches in our monthly report. So ditching and drainage issues are usually taken care of based on where they are, the impacts to the roadway, and what's affecting the system. So ditches that may become clogged or pipes that need washing, we do have a system set up to try to get in to locations where we have those issues. Sometimes we have to clean the pipes, but if we don't clean the ditches, then the pipes don't serve the purpose because the whole system's clogged up. So we have 2 or 3 different ways to handle those. One thing that sometimes gets confusing for citizens or for folks who get the complaints is that VDOT doesn't clean outfalls that aren't under our jurisdiction. So if they don't have an easement for VDOT, then we don't maintain ditches outside of the VDOT right of way. So sometimes there are channels and ditches and things that are outside of VDOT's jurisdiction that drain properties that also need to be addressed. So we will take care of complaints as they come in, and we also have a systematic way of trying to address shoulders to make sure the water drains into the ditches, and then actually trying to make sure that the ditches are flowing. So it's part of our maintenance program. In addition to everything else that we do realize that drainage on the roadways causes the pavements to deteriorate quicker, and they do cause issues for the property owner. So if there's an issue with a property owner or water backing up or things like that, we do try to make sure we attend to those as soon as we can. And then sometimes those issues are things outside of VDOT's jurisdiction that should be addressed by the property owner. So sometimes there's a difference, and we usually try to make sure they understand. So hopefully that answers it. But I think on our reports, we usually put where we're ditching if there's a particular site. And if they call you, they can always call us and put in that service request, and it'll get tracked.
Okay, thanks so much, Joyce.
Do we have any other board member that like to address Joyce? But Joyce, if it's not, we still want to go to the, we have a letter from, who is it now? We got a letter from Johnny Fleet. Did you address some of those issues that he had in the letter?
Yes. I reported back to the county what we have done. I didn't pull that. So as far as this, the issue with the signs and the GPS directional issues that he brought to your attention, he had contacted us earlier on in the year, and at that point we didn't have the same type of ability that we have now. I actually found out that we're able to go in and notify a lot of the GPS folks now that we have road closures. So what we were able to do the day after I received the letter from the board was I was able to reach out to a contact here at VDOT who was able to show Garmin, Google, Apple Maps, lots of different, I won't name them all, the map companies that we have a road that doesn't go through anymore. So within 2 days of that, we had all of the road mapping systems updated. So people that are going that direction, they know that the road doesn't go through anymore, and the system knows, so it won't direct them there anymore. We also checked with our outdoor advertising folks. There are signs that are already out there that Mr. Fleet can work with the logos folks to see if they need to be moved. There are some options for some other advertising signs that he probably needs to coordinate with the county to make sure they don't go against anything you have, as far as a couple of small directional signs on 33. And so I think we addressed all of the issues. We are also looking into seeing if there is additional signage that we could do, because the signage at the closure for the dam that isn't the road that's not open anymore at the dam, that is like from 2006, so it's quite old. And in doing that, we will be presenting that back to the board in the county to let you see what the new signage would look like. And since it's been 14 years since that has been closed, I guess we do have to have that conversation about what do we do moving forward with cul-de-sacs or turnarounds and things like that. So we'll be sending that piece back to you guys to review as soon as we get it. So I think we've addressed everything that was in the letter on our side.
Right. I noticed that Johnny Fleet's on the phone there. Johnny, do you have anything you would like to say? If you unmute your phone.
And to do that, Johnny, you hit *6 on your phone. We'll unmute your
*6. There we go.
All right. Can you hear me?
Johnny? All right, we hear you.
Good. I appreciate Ms. McGowan for her report. Yeah, we would certainly be interested in some additional signage if it's available. We pay for the TODS signs, TODS signs that you see, the blue ones with the arrows. They're a little nondescript in that there's so many of them around that at least surprised people pay little attention to them. Something a little more logo personalized, if you will, might get the attention, and it could help us. We are the only golf course in the county, and And it is visited, in particular during this pandemic, by people a lot farther away than you might think. And we do host a lot of events that people have a hard time sometimes finding their way because of the different places they're coming from. So it's not a county thing, it's a regional thing as far as getting them here. And so everybody does just about have GPS, but maybe not all. So signage is also a form of advertising, and that helps. So if you know anything about the golf business, we need all the help we can get in that industry, and certainly add the restaurant business to it. You got a double whammy. So yes, we thank you for that report and for that inquiry and the answers. So I would ask you to look at the signage that Ms. McGowan is suggesting that you may be able to do and see what you can do there.
So just to clarify, the signage that I'm referring to is the signage that you already have through Logos. You may want to contact them directly because that contract is with you and the company that provides those signs, to let them know
Right.
what your issue is. And then the other signs, as a small little directional signs that the federal highway outdoor advertising allows, but I just want to make sure that it's something that's okay. I don't know how that shouldn't affect the county's ordinance. That's something that it would be a small directional sign that would just say, you know, golf course and an arrow or something like that. Very small on our side. And that's, so I just don't want you to think that we had some other kind of sign that we could offer. But yeah, contact those directly and Todd's and let them know what your situation is. They know of it, but they'll have to work directly with you and on that.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, does any other board member have anything for Joyce? If not, thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome. Is there anything else on the agenda I need to stay for? Mine's popped off my screen.
No, that I don't see anything else at this time.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Next, school matters. Dr. Peter Bretz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Mr. Walker and everybody. Happy New Year to all of you. Thanks for having me today. I've got a few supplemental requests, funding requests, and then one budget transfer. And as always, I can just run through all of these, or I can stop and do each one individually. You can instruct me how you want to do that, Mr. Chairman.
I think it'd be good you just run through all of them. And then
okay, great. So I'll just do them in the order they're in your packet. The first is a supplemental request form. This is, if you remember, one of the CARES Act funding sources that came to us by way of the federal government through the state was the Vision Grant. We applied for that. We were awarded an amount, and then later more funding was given to Virginia by the federal government. And so this is our allocation of that additional funding. We plan to use it to support purchase of Chromebooks that we did in order to get all of our kids fully connected who were remote. But that's what this is. This is additional funding through that Vision Grant, and this is our portion of that from the state. The next one is, there is a certification that came into effect several years ago called the National Board Certification. And it's a pretty elite program that I would say very few teachers go through. It's very involved, it's complex, it's difficult. And we have a teacher who has that board certification. And there's an incentive award that the state gives to the locality to pay to teachers who have that certification. This is the first one that we've had in Middlesex since I've been here anyway. So this is $2,500 that the state gives us to give as a stipend, if you will, to this, for this certification. Each year the state offers divisions the opportunity to apply for funding to support school security. And we do this every year. Some years we get what we've asked for, and some years we get a little bit, and some years we get none. In this case, we were awarded, as you can see, almost $25,000. So again, this is grant money that comes by way of the state. And this is going to be used to support additional security cameras, as well as handheld radios. Our administrators use those quite a bit, as you know, And so we have to replace them every now and then. The next supplemental request this is also CARES Act funding. And this was something that we had to apply for additional to the other 3 disbursements. And we did this specifically to get funding to support our growth academic progress testing that we do every fall and every spring. It's referred to as the MAP test, which is the measurement of academic progress. It's a company that we contract, and we do that test every year. And we had the opportunity to apply for grant funding to support funding the test that we already give. So this will just be a little bit of help for something that we do anyway, and it won't have to come from our local budget. And then finally, we've got a transfer request, and this is a small amount of money that we're asking to move from the relief funding, the CARES Act funding, from one line to another so that we could expend it by the deadline. If you remember, it needed to be expended by December 31st. Now, over the break, they extended that a following year, but we went ahead and expended all of ours. And this was to support unemployment claims. We've had several unemployment claims during this, as I think probably every organization has dealt with that. And so we used this remaining $24.83 and 13 cents to support those claims. And in doing so, fully exhausted the funding that needed to be spent, at least at that time, by the 31st. So that's all I have. I entertain any questions that you have, certainly.
All right. Well, let me, I'd like to say, do you have a motion for FY 2021 supplement request form 40, 41, 42, and 44, and then budget transfer request form FY 2021-5. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make that a motion.
All right, we have a motion by Pete Mansfield. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Lloyd Kimball. We have a motion by Pete Mansfield, second by Lloyd Kimball. Is there any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. All right. Does anyone have any more questions for Dr. Peters?
Yeah, one quick question, Mr. Chair. Dr. Pete, is there any plan long-term to keep Canvas? And do you have a sense of what the cost would be post-COVID yearly?
That's a great question. And just to get everybody on the same page, Canvas is the learning management system that was offered as part of a package deal to school divisions at the start of this pandemic in concert with Virtual Virginia. Virtual Virginia was a platform that offered a full array of virtual courses. We were already using those in some cases. And so they offered school divisions the opportunity to get on board with both the learning management system, which is Canvas, and Virtual Virginia, which we did. We were one of the first 10 to get in, and so we did. Our plan is to keep it in place, but to be very candid with you, we have not been given, we meaning superintendents have not been given any concrete information about how that will or won't be supported by the state. And the reason we have not done a learning management system in the past, I want to say it was going to cost us about $30,000 4 years ago when we looked at Schoology was the one we looked at. About half of that, I think, was implementation costs, and half of that would have been a recurring cost, 8 to 15 every year to do it. The reason we didn't do it was because we had anywhere from 30 to 40% of our families that weren't able to connect to broadband. And it was a solution that we really wanted, but one that didn't make sense if everybody wasn't able to access it. So I guess the two variables that I would just mention here, one being everybody being connected. We kind of have everybody pretty well connected right now, at least temporarily. Verizon has given us a break on those hotspots. I don't know how long that break's going to continue. The state supported providing Canvas for free. I don't know how long that's going to be provided for free. I think it would make sense for us to keep it. We've learned how to use it. It gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility. and it's something that we wanted anyway. So the implementation costs associated with onboarding the product itself and training everybody to use it, we don't have any of that. All we'll have is the ongoing cost, which I think would be very reasonable moving forward. I hope that doesn't sound like a non-answer. Our intention would be to keep it in place. We found it to be a very, very positive tool, and one that would help us moving forward with or without the needing to be fully remote. It gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility and the ability to streamline a lot of what our teachers are doing right now.
And I would just add, I think it also, from the parent perspective, gets the parent more engaged. And it's one of those rare opportunities for us to pull a silver lining out of what's been a long, over a year now, but with COVID.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard a lot of that feedback from our parents too already. And the other thing I'd mention to you, you guys didn't ask for this, but just real quickly, we did have a call this morning. Superintendents did, and you may have already seen that the governor we're anticipating an announcement by the governor in the next 24 hours. I think it's supposed to be tomorrow, related to schools. And what we heard was really, the VDH has come up with some new guidance, or at least it's newly packaged, and it's going to effectively, most of the guidance that we've gotten to this point, I don't know how it's been for counties, but for schools, it's been layered. You know, everything just kind of adds to what we had before. This guidance that's going to be released in the next couple of days actually replaces everything. Retiring is the word they used this morning, retiring all the old guidance. And I just want to, at the risk of sounding obnoxious about this, we, you know, as we've moved forward as a school division, and with no disrespect to my counterparts, because we're all in this together and we all have different communities, but Middlesex has stood out a little bit in the way we've handled different things. I'm sure you're aware of that. The way we've handled, we're one of the only divisions in our region right now to be having in-person learning for anybody. We were one of the only ones a few weeks ago that was not going to allow students to play basketball and wrestle without masks and social distancing. What I think you're going to hear in the next 24 hours is a concerted effort on the part of the state and the Department of Health, because of some scientific evidence that they have, to essentially encourage divisions to do what we've been doing for the last 2 months. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that we have arrived, not that it's a competition by any means, but it really doesn't change. I think what you're going to hear is some scientific evidence to support a little more robust movement towards schools, and what I hope will give our community and parents who need it more confidence in what we're doing, because I think it really makes sense. I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. It'll be interesting to hear what he says based on the precursor this morning in our meeting.
All right. Okay, anybody have any more questions for Dr. Peter Gretz? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have line item C, social service report only on page 57 and 59. That's Rebecca Morgan. Is she, do you see that anywhere, Kevin? Is she on anywhere? I don't see it on mine, but.
I do not see Rebecca.
Okay, well, it had just report only. Okay.
Okay.
Next, we have health insurance benefit. David Rowe, page 60 and 66. Where's David Rowe? I see him down here. You have to unmute your mic.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Matt and Betty. Thanks for including me today in the meeting. My name is David Rowe, and I help the county with their employee health benefits. And I wanted to give the board a quick update today on an option that we'll have for our employer-sponsored health insurance program for July the 1st. Kevin, can the team see my PowerPoint presentation?
Oh, try now, Dave.
Kevin?
Yep, try to share it now.
Yeah, I sent it to you guys, assuming that you'd have it posted for the
Oh,
meeting.
I got you. Is it in the agenda?
Yes. It's in our agenda, I think, some of the steps.
If not, Kevin, it's no big deal. I can talk through it.
Wait a minute, I think I have it here.
Send it to me.
It's in the packet.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's in the packet, Kevin, don't worry about it. I'll just talk through this. Won't take 5 minutes.
All right.
You good?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to give you a little bit of historical perspective about our health insurance program that we offer to our employees. We moved, after being with Anthem on a direct basis for many years, we moved our program to Anthem through the Commonwealth of Virginia in December of 2019. That program is called the Local Choice. And just so you all know, our school division, I know Pete was on the phone, our school division and most of the local governments and school divisions on the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula are in this program. It's been a good fit. I think the employees are very pleased. We've had good rate action, and we're looking at another good year from the renewal perspective this year. But when we moved, there you go. But when we moved to the Local Choice in December of 2019, we continued the practice of not offering early retiree medical to those folks who retire who are not yet Medicare eligible. And for most folks, Medicare eligibility comes at age 65. So our folks who've retired before they were Medicare eligible in the past have only been offered 18 months of COBRA. So I wanted to let you all know what we could do if you all decide to make this change. We could offer, beginning in July when we renew our program, we could begin offering our early retirees access to our plan. They would be permitted to stay on our group plan until they became Medicare eligible. And of course, the concern there is when we think about, the rating of our program, Matt and Betty were very concerned about this. Our program, because we have less than 100 people enrolled in our health insurance program, we are pool rated. Anthem and the state do not look at our own experience. So this really would have no direct impact on our rating structure to allow our early retirees to be offered this program if you all so desire. Again, we could make that effective at our next renewal, which is July 1 of 2021. Kevin, if you'd advance me there one slide. Thank you, sir. Let me give you a little bit of perspective. I work with most of the local governments and school divisions on the Northern Neck Middle Peninsula. Just want to let you know that our school division, Middlesex County Public Schools, does offer this benefit, as do Lancaster County, Richmond County. The only two folks that I work with on the Northern Neck Middle Peninsula that do not offer this are Middlesex County and Essex County. And like Middlesex, I believe Essex is going to want to pursue this as an option for July 1, 2021. One more flip there, Kevin. So again, I don't know, Mr. Chairman, Matt, Betty, if you all were planning on taking a vote on this today, not sure what the process would be, but if you all decide to move forward, we could offer this benefit to our early retirees. In my opinion, we would not want to do this retroactively. For anyone who would retire July 1, 2021 or later, we could offer this benefit to them, and they would be entitled to stay on our plan until they became Medicare eligible, and they would pay 100% of the cost. There would be no subsidy from the county for this option. What questions do you all have for me?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
If we had an employee considering retiring or staying on part-time, what would his or her options be in terms of getting the retirement benefit?
Yes, so a good question, Mr. Kuntz. So if you all decide to offer this benefit, I would just include it in our renewal paperwork that I will prepare for July 1st. If that person were to retire, and again, it would have to be a full-time employee because we don't offer our employee benefits, our health insurance program to part-time employees. But if it were a full-time employee who retired after July 1 and you all had elected to have the benefit, they could stay on our program, but they would pay 100% of the cost of the premium for each month.
But would it prohibit them from staying on part-time? Can they still collect the benefit and work part-time?
It would, because part-time employees are not eligible, so they would elect the early retiree plan. Now, Mr. Kuntz, I want to make sure I'm clear. This is not offered to our BOS members. This would not be offered to our BOS members. This would be for full-time benefit eligible employees.
I appreciate that clarification. What I'm looking for is we have some employees that may be retiring in the next year. And if it's a disincentive, if this becomes a disincentive to stay on part-time, it's less favorable to me. Not that I would change my mind on how I would vote for it, but if there's a way to structure it where someone who's debating retiring or stepping down into a part-time position can still receive the benefit, that would be my preference, so that we're not disincentivizing somebody from stepping into a part-time role.
Absolutely. And again, because a part-timer working for Middlesex County would not be benefit eligible, they could retain the early retiree benefit after they retired through the Virginia retirement system.
So just for clarification, if a full-time employee retires, collects this benefit and pays for it the way that they pay for it, they could still work part-time at that point, or no?
In terms of being continued to be offered the benefit, yes, they could.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't phrase the question better.
No, great question.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to piggyback a little bit on what John just asked and get a further clarification. If an employee was going to be secured as a 1099 contract employee, not necessarily part-time, but just on a consultant basis, would those same rules apply to that person?
Absolutely, Matt. Again, 1099 employees are not benefit eligible. They'd be entitled to this as a retired Middlesex County employee.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other board members have any questions for David Rowe? As you say, you gotta be a full-time employee. And if not, you can't get that extra benefit. All right, well, nobody has any questions. Does anybody what do you want to do with this? I'm just going to open up to the board. Would we like to, for our early retirees, be able to join in with the hospitalization plan, and there will be no cost to the county. So it'd be they have to pay 100% to keep in with the hospital plan. That's my understanding, right, David Rowe?
Yes, sir, Mr. Jesse.
Okay. And if they choose, if they retire early, they choose to stay on the plan till they get 65, that's up to them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Until they become Medicare eligible. That is correct.
Right. Until they become Medicare eligible.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, if there's no discussion.
Okay. All right, John.
I'd like to second.
Well, let me make the motion first, but I appreciate the support. I move that we move forward with this program effective July 1st and not retroactive. And we make that vote today.
All right, we have a motion by John. Do we have a second?
You do.
A motion by John, second by Pete Mansfield. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Kuntz? Mr. Mansfield?
Yay.
Mr. Williams?
Mike,
Mr. Williams?
Mike.
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. Motion so carried. All right, if there's no more questions for David Rowe, but thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to point out that was our first unanimous vote of 2021.
Mr. Coons, I'm glad I could be a part of that.
All right. Okay, next we would have line item E, the Health Department pandemic. Dr. Richard Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jesse. I think everybody's aware we're in very severe pandemic surge nationwide now. We are in Virginia. Our trajectory of cases continues to go up, and our percent positivity testing is continuing to go up statewide. It's now at 16.2%. Transmission in all jurisdictions it remains high, specifically at highest risk for by CDC criteria for congregate settings. We still have pretty good ICU capability across the state. We're at 80% ICU occupancy. 35% of our ventilators are in use. That's higher than I've seen at any time during the course of this pandemic, but we've still got hospital reserve. In Three Rivers, we've had very high case counts last couple of weeks. 3 weeks ago, over 500. Last week, or two weeks ago, 517. Last week, we dropped to 440 new cases. Today, we have had 80 thus far. So it's brisk transmission in the Three Rivers Health District. In Middlesex, past couple of weeks, we've been in the mid-20s for cases. I think we had 4 new cases in Middlesex today. Vaccine update, we are actively administering the Moderna vaccine through the Three Rivers Health District. Riverside Hospital System, also, they've been vaccinating their own staff, and they're going to help us with community vaccination using probably a combination of Pfizer and Moderna product. The vaccine rollout will occur in 3 phases. Phase 1A, which is what we're in now, are healthcare workers and long-term care facility residents and staff. Long-term care facility residents and staff are being taken care of by Federal Pharmacy Partnership using CVS and Walgreens. And we're, Riverside, the hospital systems took care of their own employees using mostly Pfizer product, and we are now engaged in the non-hospital based healthcare workers, EMS, and elements of law enforcement. And like I said, Riverside, Walter Reed is rolling in to help us on that. In the next several weeks, we'll move to phase 1B. That's people aged 75 years and older, and non-healthcare frontline essential workers, such as any other law enforcement personnel, firefighters, educators, grocery store workers. After that, we'll go to phase 1C, which is persons aged 65 to 74 years, and then anybody aged 16 to 64 years with high-risk medical conditions, and other essential workers not included in phase 1B. Our experience thus far with the Moderna product, it's more complex by a long shot than our flu vaccine events. It's administratively more complex, plus there's a waiting period of 15 minutes after the vaccine where people have to remain on site. Healthcare questionnaire needs to be filled out, and we need to watch people more carefully because the rate of immediate reaction, severe allergic reaction with this vaccine is worse than flu. And we've already had a couple of incidents of that, not in Three Rivers, but in other health districts. So we're watching our people very carefully to be vaccinated. We held 2 events last week. This week, we held one today at Middlesex. Tomorrow, we're going to hold another one where we're going to get the EMS for 8 counties, plus elements of law enforcement, and some of our non-healthcare system healthcare providers. And that'll be at the Warsaw EMS station up in Richmond County. We hope to achieve a throughput when we do those events of about 300 people a day. Even with that, it's going to take a huge effort to work through these 3 phases and then on to the general population. And we're going to have to distribute the vaccination effort, not just hospital-based and health department-based, but we're going to need to engage doctors' offices, pharmacies, other places that you typically see vaccinations and flu shots given. So we're working through now how to do that and how to do that best. I will keep you informed of that effort going forward. We've all heard about the new, more contagious strain of COVID-19 that's making its way around the world. It looks like the existing Pfizer and Moderna vaccines will be effective against that virus. The AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccines, which are going to come online hopefully in the next several weeks to couple of months, also will probably be effective. But it's important to realize these coronaviruses genetically drift all the time. And this is going to happen on an ongoing basis. So vaccine tweaking will likely have to happen going forward, and will be a constant effort to keep up with this virus as it evolves. Specifically, evolutionary pressure will evolve it to evade our defensive efforts, become more infectious, not more seriously or lethal. It actually favors evolutionary pressure to be less lethal. Virus likes to keep its host alive, but change enough to be able to infect the same person more than once. So that's what we're dealing with. Pardon me. With regard to testing in the district, testing is still available through the central office of VDH, National Guard, and turnkey operators, but we don't have the resources to do a focused vaccination campaign and a testing campaign. So we've turned completely to vaccination, and we'll maximize our efforts along those lines. Our contact tracing and containment efforts, case investigation, are extremely stressed by the high case numbers. So we've dropped back to, we're not really contact tracing except in very high risk exposures and outbreaks. And we're also case investigating in those high risk areas as well. We are still able to get to most people, but there are people that we can't get to. So we're counseling everybody, if they get COVID-19, to self-isolate and call their close contacts and have them quarantined, to sort of do a modified self-imposed containment activity while these case counts are as high as they are. Executive order compliance team remains intact, and we're able to investigate all those compliance issues. K through 12 school status. I have a meeting in a few minutes with the Virginia Department of Health senior leadership to find out about the evolved new VDH guidance on K through 12. But so far, we've had very few school-based virus transmission events, very few outbreaks in school, and those that we have, we were able to detect very quickly and isolate. That's a high-risk venue where our contact tracing will remain intact. It's places like schools and other vulnerable facilities. So even with the very high community spread, it looks like the defensive measures in schools and the less ability, if you will, of very young kids to transmit efficiently the COVID-19. They can all get it, but the younger they are, the harder it is to be efficient transmitters. So all of those things work together to be protective of the schools. So we are supporting, certainly keeping the schools open, carefully watching, even with these high transmission rates. If the more infectious strain of virus becomes predominant, which it probably will, that could change the dynamic. That could cause higher pandemic surges. That could cause breach of school defenses. If something like that happens, then we'll know it, and we'll react accordingly in a combination with our educational partners and the superintendents. But so far, so good with the schools. That's just about it. Please the same defensive measures we've used all the time are critically important to continue even after and through the vaccination campaign. It's not really known at this point if these vaccines will prevent disease in the majority of people. We are very confident that if disease occurs, it will be less severe. That's kind of what flu vaccine does. And we also are pretty confident it will prevent a lot of infections, but we just don't know. So as we go through the coming weeks and months, it'll be essential to continue masking and social distancing, practicing good sanitation measures. And we hope for measure population immunity over the coming months as we're able to roll this vaccine out. That's my high level summary, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Williams, I have a request. I am over 75 and I do not know at this moment where to go to get my injection or when I can get it or what the formality is. Could you possibly give me some idea for the different, you said 1A and 1B and 1C, for those three categories, can you give me some idea of what format people in those different categories should do at this time to make sure that they can get the injections at the earliest possible time?
Yes, sir. You will land in phase 1B. The objective is to mobilize physicians' offices and pharmacies and other places, mainly for folks who are getting the vaccine based on age criteria and or health criteria. We hope that the primary place of vaccination will turn out to be the primary care doctor's office or the health system that's taking care of you. That's the first option. The second option is the health department. And we'll all enter this phase 1B simultaneously. I can guarantee the health department will be vaccinating in phase 1B, I hope within the next several weeks. The Riverside system, I hope, will continue to help us during that time. And we are now trying to mobilize vaccine to providers in the community who indicated they'd be willing to give those vaccines. That's a process. There's a lot of criteria that need to be met. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to coordinate all that. And that's going to be a big, heavy lift over the next several months, or not months, but weeks. But the first option for age criteria vaccination would be a community-based provider with a health department backup. If you keep in touch with me, sir, we'll make sure that we get anybody in your category in as well as you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Anybody got any other questions? Dr. Williams.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. And first of all, thank you, Dr. Williams, for your tireless work. I know this has probably been a long 10 months for you, and the region deeply appreciates it. Have you heard of a third strain out of South Africa?
Yes, I have. And not as widely publicized and not as widely published as the strain out of the UK. The little I've read on the South African strain is it's, probably more infectious, but again, I haven't read that it's more deadly, if you will, or produces worse clinical results than the UK strain. There's actually a couple of 3 strains that are circulating. This virus mutates all the time. The UK strain, for instance, has, I think, 14 major mutations in the genome and 6 or more minor ones. One of those mutations is on the spike protein. So the worry was that these highly targeted vaccines like Moderna and Pfizer, which target the spike protein, may not recognize the spike protein on the mutated virus. Best opinions of the manufacturers and public health authorities believe that recognition will occur, the virus will be effective. But that we just got to wait and see. But yeah, you're going to hear about more strains emerging, and we'll just have to, as a system, try to keep ahead of that.
Phase 1A, B, C of the vaccine rollout, is there public information through VDH, Three Rivers District, that you can point us to that we might be able to put on our county website so that folks like Pete Mansfield in the 75 plus category and others in various categories can be aware of the timing, the numbers, how far along are we towards being done with phase 1A and moving to phase 1B? Is there information about, the vaccines coming online and are we getting all that we need, or is there a shortage? Is there a place that you can provide that us a resource that we can link to on our website so that we can direct constituents to that good source of information as opposed to all the various sources that are out there that are maybe confusing?
Yeah, every week I write an extensive pandemic update that I send to the planning district commissions and the county administrators. That's quite specific to the Three Rivers Health District. It starts at a global and then a national pandemic status, and then goes to the state and the local. But I'm very, very heavily detailing both the vaccination programmatic intent, viral mutations, effectiveness of the vaccine, and our specific experience with the vaccine. So I just sent my latest one of those out today. So if you put that on the website, and it has links to other data sources, VDH data sources, and so on and so forth. CDC data sources, but fact sheets about the vaccine and other things. So, and the phases will be listed in there. So that's probably the best and most specific quick read, meaning you can go through it in 10 minutes or so, that I could suggest.
Does that usually come out on Tuesday?
Try to send it on Monday, and sometimes we bleed over into Tuesday, depends on the numbers. It's on our It's on our Three Rivers website as well.
Okay, Matt and Kevin, I think it might make sense for us to look at that. My final question, Dr. Williams, we have a fair amount of constituents that spend some of the winter in Florida. Some of them are in categories where they're receiving their first vaccination down there. Should they return to Virginia and Middlesex in particular between their first and second injection, will that have an impact? I've got one constituent who knows she's coming back with one injection, but not the second. Will that confuse the system, or is that accounted?
On a onesies and twosies basis, the system can handle that, but it's far better to stay with the same provider that gave you your first injection. That way, when the doses are allocated, if I get a dose for you now, I know I'm going to get a second dose for you in 4 weeks of the Moderna product. So it's dedicated that way. The vaccine has been. So it's best to stay with the same provider, and you eliminate the risk, or you reduce the risk of getting a different product, because there's 2 of them out there. So, if somebody has to come back mid-cycle, okay, Florida, instead of following the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices recommendations for priority, Florida prioritized age first. So all of people 75 years and older and 65 years and older, they're all lining up down in Florida to get their vaccine, not the healthcare workers. So that's going to cause a disconnect, especially if those people are traveling commensurate with their winter plans. So better to stay in one place, but can try to get, obviously try to get her the vaccine, but it will stress the system.
Thanks, that's all I had. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir.
All right, does any other board member have any question for Dr. Williams? Well, Dr. Williams, I would also like to know, naturally, everybody's not going to take the vaccine. And also, what is in the vaccine? Do you know all the ingredients in the vaccine? And will anybody have an allergic reaction to where they won't be able to take the vaccine?
You know, the two vaccines out there, the Moderna and the Pfizer product, anybody who has had an anaphylactic reaction, that's part of the checklist that we use and the questions that we ask.
Okay.
Anybody, you know, we look at the fact sheet with everybody concerning the vaccine. We ask if anybody knows of an allergy to the vaccine, of any of the components of the vaccine. We ask if they have ever had anaphylactic reaction to any vaccine or any injection or any drug. If they answer yes to if we know they're allergic to a specific component, then they would need to be pre-treated and vaccinated under special circumstances. Okay, so we think hard before we vaccinated somebody like that. If they've had an anaphylactic reaction in the past, we will go ahead and vaccinate them, but we'll put them in a special off in an area where we can watch them even closer. We will have EMS on site. We do have epinephrine and Benadryl and airways and other things that we can do rescue on site for an anaphylactic response. But we'll be watching those people very carefully, and we'll be ready to provide EMS services and transport immediately.
All right, thank you.
We're thinking that'll be a very rare occurrence.
Okay. Any other board member? If not, thank you, Dr. Williams. Appreciate for all that information.
Thanks, Mr. Jesse, and thank you all. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Next, we'll have line item F, Robinson, Farmer, and Cox audit presentation. Paul Lee.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be sharing my screen for Paul's presentation.
Okay.
Thank you very much for having me here today to present the 2020 county audit. I would just say on the outset, auditing in a pandemic was a little different than normal, but we got through it. Your staff, the people at your county, the schools, social services, otherwise, were really helpful in getting us through the audit this year. So I just really would commend them on the job they did. The first screen that Matt has up there is our opinion on the financial statements themselves. And I would just report, as in prior years, the county received an unmodified opinion, which is what you want. That's what you're looking for when you go out to get an audit. And so the county succeeded in that. Matt, if you could hit that next screen. Okay. Then the next screen, I believe, is and this is the report on government auditing standards. And that's a required report. And there we're reporting that we found no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, anything of that sort to report. So there again, that's a good thing. There's nothing you have to follow up on. You have to send to either the auditor of public accounts or a federal agency. So that is all good as well. The next report is on federal compliance. And we audited as major programs this past year, the school food program, as well as the school's Title I program. And there was nothing there to report out, nothing that you have to correct or any corrective action that has to be taken. So that's all good as well. The next screen I've got there is this is on the budget basis or the modified accrual basis, but we're looking at the changes in fund balance primarily. Matt, if you could scroll down maybe just a little bit further, there you go. For the general fund last year, we had an increase in the general fund balance of about $326,000 there. I think the ending fund balance there probably represents about 29% of your operating budget. And I want to point out that in this figure, there's no CARES Act money. The CARES Act money that came in June was all deferred, so it's all going to be spent in FY21 or beyond. And so anyway, that money that was received has been deferred, so that's not inflating your balance at the end of the year. And I'd also would say that next year we'll definitely be looking at doing single audit work on the CARES Act expenditures that have been made in FY21. Also, for most localities, and I think Middlesex is one of them, the sales tax stayed high and probably exceeded. I know it exceeded the budget of what you expected. When we looked early on, when the pandemic started, we were thinking those type of revenues may suffer an impact. But for Middlesex and most of the other localities that I've audited, sales tax actually increased. And so I think that was a good thing. One last slide there, Matt, is the tax collection percentage. And you can see there for 2020, we're right at 99% collection. And you can see over 10 years there that we've always been really close to that range. There might have been one outlier there in 2012, but it just really speaks that you're still getting the tax collected that you're assessing. You need to know that when you're doing the budget. Other than that, that's what I really wanted to present to you today, other than take any questions that you may have.
All right. Well, Paul, all I need to say is financially, we're in pretty good shape.
Well, yes, sir. I think as I was pointed out with your fund balance at 29% of overall, that's very good financial state. I mean, for any locality.
Paul, can you remind me what your recommendation is for fund balance as a percentage? Was it 20% is a good number? So 29 is 9% above good?
Yeah, it's 20% is, you want to stay probably in the 20% range. You don't want to back down from that very much. And so over 20% is good, but 20% is kind of the minimum that you're looking for.
And if I can add, and the board will recall, I say this pretty much every year, having cash on hand is one of the reasons we're able to enjoy such attractive refinancing rates on our debt. The refinancing companies look at the amount of cash reserves you have on hand in terms of your fiscal strength, and that does affect the interest rates we pay on our debt. We are very blessed to have very good interest rates on our existing debt.
But Paul, would you say that there's a diminishing returns above 20%? I mean, at some point you're stowing away cash unnecessarily, and there's a diminishing return even in terms of interest rates. Is that at 25, 23, or is it hard to say?
It really depends on the size of the locality. You're a relatively small locality. So it would not be unusual to see a smaller locality with a larger percentage than, let's say, a Chesterfield or where I reside or anything of that sort. So I don't know that I would necessarily say there's a diminishing return there, but I mean, you can look at that in the budget, and I know you guys tend to budget beginning and ending fund balances when you're working on that.
And that's one of the items we review in Friday's strategic goals meeting, as the board kind of outlines their capital improvement projects for the year and other strategic initiatives they want to engage in.
And I think there's a report I'm going to give Matt to present there on Friday on that. It's just an annual update of where you are.
Okay, do we have any other board members that would like to say anything about the audit? If not, Thank you, Paul Lee, for that information.
Okay, thank you very much.
I
And the last,
would, Mr. Chairman, if I could just comment, I would like to say good work to the people of the county and who work for the county who were able to deliver these results in a year where it was so unpredictable. My quick review of the audit, what I observed was I saw the combined long-term obligations of the county decreased by over $2 million. The governmental activities increased our county's net position during the year by $970,000. Our debt decreased by $2.1 million. With all the activities that we have going on, that is stellar performance. And I just thank everybody for doing such a good job and being good stewards of our taxpayers' funds.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
well, Lud, on behalf of Betty and myself and the treasurer's office, and I guess to a great degree of the commissioner's office as well, we appreciate that very much. Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, the last item, the board would need to vote to receive the audit.
Okay, at this time, will we have a motion to receive the audit?
So moved.
Did we have, did John, did we have a motion by John?
Yeah, I tried. I think I muted myself. So moved.
Right, you did. Okay, we have a motion by John to receive the audit. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by John, second by Lud. At this time, any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
you muted yourself again. There you go.
Aye, Betty.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. All right, well, thank you. Next, it'd be line item G, reassessment update, Steve Wampler. You have to unmute there, Steve.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, board members, and congratulations, Chairman Jesse, on your reelection.
Thank you.
And Mr. Walker and Ms. Muncy, a pleasure to be here. Am I still live? Y'all can see us?
Yeah, well, you're still alive. You're still on here.
Yeah, I'm
Just like to
Stephen
hear your
Walker.
update.
I'm Stephen Walker, Principal, Walper Eames Appraisal Group. It's Fred Bond, one of our chief appraisers. Fred's involved in the reassessment here. Let me start off to say we did get an early start this go round. We hit the field here about the end of July, and we worked approximately about we've done about 40% of the field work has been visited, which equates to roughly about 6,000 parcels that we visited. The data entry setting around just a little over 2,000. We started in the northern end, the Jamaica district, and we're down to about we've gone south to about Urbana. We're really in the low density area. Of course, we're moving south into the Deltaville area where we'll finish. We're still looking at our sales. The market here is still, there's a good demand. Of course, there's no supply. We still haven't inventoried the campgrounds yet. That'll probably be done sometime early this spring. I think it's 4 campgrounds. This has been the first time that this has been done in Middlesex. The marinas, I'm going to personally do the marinas as I have I think this will be our 3rd go around here with the marinas. I've been involved in all three reassessment projects on them. I have a couple set up this month that I'm going to personally take a look at. The computer tables, we haven't updated anything yet. We'll probably wait probably to early summer, late spring before we get enough sales data in to do this. When we started this project, sales ratio here by the Department of Taxation was right around, right at about 100%, which you're not going to certainly see any decreases unless something drastic should happen. We just closed 5 counties in one city this fall, and we saw increases from about 5 to 20% in all of it except for one. One is pretty much stable to could have a little decline. That's far southwest Virginia, Buchanan County. Grundy's a county seat, but for instance, we just closed Caroline County. Well, we just closed it last week actually, and they had about a 20% overall increase. Of course, it's way too early to tell what we'll have here, but we do have a good plethora of sales that we do have. And we know even some of the interior property, not non-waterfront, seems to be going up just a little bit. We probably have some in the cove, shallow water front lots that possibly could be dropping a little bit, or water view sites. They don't seem to be as in a high demand, but right now, one thing, all the lots, and we're seeing this not only here in Middlesex, but in all our localities, lots are coming back. People are starting to buy the lots and start building a little bit where they've been sitting vacant for a number of years. But the sales that we're having here, Fred, do look pretty strong. I want to let you talk a little bit about what you've been seeing.
That's right. I've been seeing, like the other counties, this county has been in high demand. There's a limited supply in certain price ranges, and the prices have been going up. I've talked with some of the local realtors. You may know Eric Johnson, Artie Johnson. There are a couple of them that I always talk with. They've had some sales of some properties, even out in Jamaica, that have been selling for a little more than you might expect.
We've been seeing these nice ranchers that are about 12 to 1,600, 1,400 square feet on an acre lot. They're high demand, not only here, but we've had some sales here where our past reassessment or past values are 189, and now we're seeing them sell for 220, 230. That's certainly not uncommon, and that's something we'll have to address. One sale doesn't make the market, but we have a dozen or more, or like say we're like historians. We'll continue to analyze this market up to when we send the notices sometime November of 2021.
All right, well, appreciate that information. Does any other board member have anything for Steve Wampler?
Any questions or concerns from anybody?
I had one question. Do we have all 5 or so Board of Equalization members in place? And is that on 3 skids, or do we need to go out and find more Equalization Board members?
Legally, I don't think they could be appointed to January 1, 2022, but the judge will appoint those, but this is in the early stages of that. They probably in about October, I think each board member needs to appoint a BOE member from his or her district.
Right.
And that's something staff will give each board member a primer on as far as what requirements the equalization board members have to have. They have to represent certain industry clusters as well as some of the geographic locations. I think it's more important and code related that they represent certain employment clusters like building, real estate, things of that nature.
Right.
And I certainly welcome anybody that wants to come by and see the office or get into some of the nuts and bolts. Feel free to give us a call and come by and visit.
Steve, what date will the work be completed?
I don't have the contract in front of me, but I think we'll pretty much, Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking sometime towards the end of October 2021.
Yeah, that's correct, Steve. I believe it is. And then that sets in motion our processes on making sure the equalization board's in town.
And then we'll have what they call the Board of Assessors hearings, which will be us, our group, and then of course then it will be the BOE, the Board of Equalization.
Yeah, and Steve, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Steve just to kind of go over that process. We have 19 members of the public joining us tonight. We're blessed to have that. Steve, can you walk people through the process? Say you do your assessment, the property owner is notified of an increase or a decrease. What's the process look for a property owner after that, Steve?
Well, they'll contact us, and then we'll certainly have a review on their property, and they'll get another notice in the mail sometime after the first of the year. Those hearings will probably have 8 to 10 days in November. Right now, we just started, I think it was in April of 2020 in the city of Franklin. We're going to no face-to-face hearings. But in the past, I've been in this industry 40 some years now, and this is the first time we've done this. But the last 6 hearings that we've had, we've done no face-to-face. We've done we do Zoom, email, by mail, telephone calls, but that's basically the process. It's the same as it is in the past, but I mean, hopefully it could clear up. We'll do face-to-face, but as you remember, Matt, they would come into, I think we have used the Board of Supervisors room there upstairs twice here before, but that's where they would come in and sit down with an appraiser and go over their property record card if it's in dispute, or we get a lot of questions now. So, some are actually, we get some people that come in and say they want to raise it's too low. As you all well know, this is a mass appraisal process. We're looking at about 14,889 or right around 15,000 parcels here, and we will miss some things, but hopefully that'll be it'll be very few. But that's in a nutshell. That's sort of the process that they can just come to appeal to their appraisers.
Right. And if I'll elaborate a little bit, so a property owner that gets an appraisal or an assessment rather, preliminary assessment that they're not in agreement with, they would come to you, set up an appointment with your staff, maybe meet via Zoom, review the appraisal. Y'all would make sure that you've got everything accurate, and if not, y'all may make adjustments or you may not. And then the next recourse that property owner has would be to wait for an equalization board to be impaneled. And then they have their day in front of the equalization board, so to speak. The equalization board either makes adjustments or holds the assessment. And then the natural order of progression would be, if the property owner then objected, they would have to go to circuit court. And
that's correct. Yes, sir.
So it's kind of a graduated response. And that's actually a good thing. It's been my experience that just about 80%, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, just about 80% of the disagreements are handled at the appraisal level, where someone comes in and talks to the assessor and says, okay, well, you had me down as having brick, but look at this. I think you may have made a mistake there, and it's something different. Oh yeah, I made a mistake and that would affect it this much. And things usually get worked out at that level. In recent years,
basement finishes are a big item. Of course, you all don't have a lot of basements here in Middlesex. Of course, you have some nice waterfront properties. They do that are sort of 2-story on slab, but that's something that can be corrected, or the number of baths, or just for instance, we had, what was Caroline tell you, 19,000 parcels? 22,000. We had about 800 appeals just finished up on, we finished there December 23rd, but out of 22,000, we had 800 appeals, because I just counted them for the Mr. Cully, county administrator up there, and and that's probably pretty close. We usually see somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from 3 to 5% of the number of parcels, and that's just a general number of that's the average that we see.
Yeah, and I think over the last couple of reassessments, the number of appeals, even to your appraiser staff, has been less than what the county had experienced back in the 90s and the 2Ks.
Yeah, that's back when you had those large increases. And what has it been? Are we on a 4-year cycle here, Matt? Was the last one was effective 1/1/18? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. 4 to 5 years is what we're averaging.
I understand. That's,
So I guess what just bringing that up to say, a lot of these disagreements get worked out at the assessor level. Then what's not filters up to the equalization board, but the number of cases we've had has been fewer and fewer as the reassessments have come in over the last several years. Hopefully we'll enjoy that again this year, but I guess it really depends. That's all I had to say, Mr. Chairman.
and of course, we come in too high, it'll be up to you guys to lower that tax rate.
Right, right.
That's a whole other discussion, Steve. We'll look at those chickens.
I figured you'd like that one.
All right, if nobody have anything for Steve, well, thank you for the good job and keep up the work, all right?
Already, thank you for letting us work with the citizenry of Middlesex. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you. Next, it is line item H, airport project update. Jeff Gore.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, board members.
How are you?
Thanks for having me. I will try to make this brief. We talked about this a month or so ago, and what we have before you all today for consideration is the interim agreement under the PPTA for the airport Hummel Field realignment and extension project with Delaware Corporation. Just sort of a couple administrative matters. The state code and your policies require that the interim agreement be posted on your website for 30 days for public comment. That has been done, and it is still up on your website along with the exhibits. So we've satisfied that requirement. In addition, you all appointed a procurement committee to help evaluate the proposal and the interim agreement and ultimately a comprehensive agreement. That committee has been provided both the interim agreement draft and an outline highlighting the key terms and conditions of that. So their input has been sought. I have received only positive comments from your procurement committee members, and no one had any suggested amendments or any opposition to it. So it's been noticed for 30 days. It's been on your website, and your procurement committee has been engaged and has had provided positive feedback. So I just want to briefly outline for you what the interim agreement would do as currently proposed should you adopt it or approve it. As you know, before construction can happen on the project, if we want to ultimately be eligible for state grants, which we do, before construction can happen, we've got to go through the steps that require the preliminary planning work to be conducted and approved by the State Department of Aviation. Those two steps are the ALP, the Airport Layout Plan, and the environmental impact review. That's what this interim agreement covers, and I'll describe here how it does that. Essentially, your private partner, Delcorp, is agreeing to be responsible for the costs and performance of the ALP and the EIR. They will provide that work through Parrish & Partners, an engineering firm, which you all are familiar with, who has done work on the airport, and essentially is your airport engineer. So they would be doing that work through Delcorp, through Parrish & Partners, providing the ALP and EIR to the county for the county's approval, and then the county would in turn submit those two preliminary plans to the State Department of Aviation for their approval. Again, Delcorp is agreeing under the proposed interim agreement to cover the entire costs of the preliminary work, which amounts to, I think it's $45,000. Here I have it, $45,000 roughly for the ALP and $40,000 for the EIR, for the environmental. Now, those two plans are going to be done pursuant to very specific scopes of work that have been vetted and approved by the Department of Aviation staff. So the county has been working with Department of Aviation to get them to sign off on the scopes of work and the cost estimates. Last time we talked about this, the cost estimates were a lot higher. So having a private partner has already paid some dividends. I think they were Delcorp was able to refine some of the work and some of the scope and get the cost significantly down. But again, ultimately, Delcorp's agreeing to cover these costs. So that's what this sets out. It sets out an agreement whereby Delcorp would proceed with this work through Parish and Partners, would provide the finished product to you all for the county's approval. Now, if the county approves and submits these plans, if for any reason, either the layout plan or the environmental are not approved by any state or federal agency, mainly it's going to be the Department of Aviation, but DEQ will be involved in the environmental. If for any reason that the plans as submitted are not improved, then Delcorp agrees under this agreement to go back and make whatever changes are necessary to get the plans in compliance. Again, these plans have to be approved before you can even move forward to the construction phase. So the risk is really borne by your private partner on this preliminary work. The only scenarios where the county would be on the hook for the costs I just mentioned, as currently proposed in this agreement, would be if you all decide, the county decides ultimately not to go forward with the project. Again, this is the cost that's being borne by the private partner in the hopes that the project will actually happen. If the project doesn't happen, we don't go to construction, then under that scenario, in this agreement, that's when the county would be responsible for paying Delcorp back for the $45,000 of the ALP and the $40,000 of the EIR. But of course, we're going to apply for grant money. So, upwards of 80% of these funds can be eligible for state grants. And that's another issue that the county's in the process of applying for the ALP grant and will be applying for the environmental as well. The Board of Aviation has pushed back its meeting to March, but that's when our application will be able to be considered for the ALP grant. We have gotten some guidance from the department staff that if we're in a position to go ahead and add an application for the environmental, that they will be in a position to consider that as well. So we're sort of working on the strategy of how those grants are applied for, but that's kind of a separate issue. Other than when it comes to the grant, what the county is agreeing to in this interim agreement is to apply for the grant. There's no guarantee we're going to get it ever. I think the odds are pretty good over time we will be successful, but it may not happen, the next time. But we're agreeing to apply for the grant, and should the grant be awarded, to pass that money through to the private partner, which will partially reimburse the company for the funds they've spent. So that's really what the county's agreeing to. We're gonna apply for the grants, and if we're successful, we're gonna pass that through to the private partner who has been funding this. So I think that the liability, the exposure here is very limited for the county. It's really shifted to the private partner, so I think it's good in that regard. And that's the next step. The next step is for the board, if you want to move forward, is to approve this interim agreement. And the other thing this would trigger, it would trigger under the terms of the agreement, it would trigger the beginning of a detailed phase discussion on the actual project, on the actual design and construction. And we would begin, it would be, in other words, a parallel path. The work would be started on the interim agreement services, which are the ALP and EIR, for submission to the state. But at the same time, we would, to not waste any time, we would start developing more detailed terms and conditions on an actual design and construction. Not binding the county to go forward with that next phase, but in the interest of time, we would begin that work if you all approve this agreement, we would begin developing the comprehensive construction and design agreement. But this doesn't bind you to go forward to the construction. We'll wait and see. We gotta one step at a time. We've got to get this design, the preliminary work done. We've got to get that approved by the state. We've got to apply for the grants. Then we've got to, move forward with construction. Should you all want to at that point. So I think that's it. I think I've talked enough. If you all have questions, please fire away, and I'll do my best to answer.
Okay. What
Matt,
I'll do right
how
now,
much staff time? Sorry, go ahead.
okay,
Chair, can I ask-
John, you go ahead. Go ahead and
Okay.
say what you need to say.
Yeah, Matt, how much staff time are we using on the grant application, or is that mostly Delaware Corporation?
Betty, I'll defer to you because you're the airport manager, and a lot of this project's going to be filtering through you.
Well,
And Detour, of course.
most of the application process is the parish and partners, our engineers do the paperwork part of it. And I just kind of gather it together and submit it into the state system. So.
Okay. And Heather, have you reviewed the interim agreement, and do you have any thoughts on it?
Yes, sir, I have reviewed it, and no, sir, I don't have any comments. I didn't have, there were a few things that Jeff and I had talked about a while ago, and those have been incorporated. They were very minor changes, typographical. So I have no comment at this time.
Yeah, I would just, in further answering your question, John, Betty and my involvement is going to increase as the project moves forward, and if the county decides to move forward with it. Right now, I got to commend Jeff Gore and his team. They've been acting as our legal counsel on the project and as our kind of project lead and coordinator, so to speak. So the bulk of the interactions with Delaware Corp have been through Jeff Gore. And I think that level of workload on the staff will increase as the project continues forward.
All right, now, I'd like to say what I need to say at this time. Do we have a motion with the for the project of on the interim agreement with Delaware Corporation, with the ALP, and also with the ERR for the plans of the airport? Do I have that motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Reggie Williams. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Reggie Williams, second by John Koontz. Is there any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Koontz?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
And Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Thank you, Jeff Gore. For
Mr.
what
Chairman.
you're doing. Okay, all right. Next, we will have Heritage Committee, Patricia Satterfield.
Well, good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon.
Thank you to the Board of Supervisors for the opportunity to address you and for welcoming the Heritage Committee to this, the first meeting of the year of the board. It is of great importance to the committee that you are aware of our existence, our purpose, our mission, and our continuing interest in being a part of the process, since we now know that we are operating under the umbrella of the county. The current members of the Heritage Committee are Henry Easton, who was appointed chair by the Middlesex County Foundation, Louis Briggs, Hallie Holmes, Wayne Jesse, the chair of the Board of Supervisors, Arnetta Banks Kidd, Nancy West, Carstella West, Bessada Cawthorn White, and Patricia Polson Satterfield, who has been designated as the project manager. Now, except for Carstella West, we all are attendees or graduates of St. Clair Walker High School. Costello West, the mother of committee member Nancy West, was the valedictorian of the last graduating class from Middlesex Training School before it was renamed St. Clair Walker High School, in honor of many of our former trigonometry, algebra, or geometry professors, John Henry St. Clair Walker. Tyler Radebaugh and Ray Rose also have been working with the committee. And in the past, the committee has met with representatives of the Virginia Department of Historic Resources, Matt Walker, our county administrator, Gordon White, the chair of the Economic Development Corporation, Bruce DeSimeon, chair of the Middlesex County Foundation, and Michelle Brown, coordinator of the Economic Development Authority, who has been working with the committee on an ongoing basis. Before I go any further, may I emphasize that the Heritage Committee continues to be in formation, and current committee members welcome new members of our community interested in joining with us. The Heritage Committee is committed to and passionate about discovering and preserving the history of our ancestral roots in Middlesex County. Now, what has it achieved? Our committee was formed in 2017, and we originally envisioned the Cook's Corner Revitalization Plan as a three-pronged project. Prong one was the restaurant complex featuring St. Clair Walker High School. Prong two, the affordable housing project. And prong three, the Heritage Trail. Initially, the Heritage Committee focused on prong one, St. Clair Walker High School. The committee began collecting photographs, conducting oral histories, collecting newspaper articles, and memorabilia reflective of the historical life of St. Clair Walker High School. Beginning with its renaming from Middlesex Training School in 1948 to its closing in 1969. However, following the appearance of Governor Ralph Northam on March 2nd, 2019, in Middlesex County announcing the revitalization of Cook's Corner, the Heritage Committee recognized that it was critical that the committee expand its focus to include the history of Cook's Corner that for decades was such a vital economic and cultural force in the African-American community. Now, how did we intend to implement the plans? The committee identified several formats, including wall hangings based upon pictures, newspaper articles, reunion, graduation programs, videos of oral histories, as well as testimonials of former students, former teachers and staff, former cafeteria workers, etc. With the planned change of circumstances resulting from the withdrawal of the developers for the microbrewery and the restaurant prong of the Cook's Corner Revitalization Project, the Heritage Committee refocused upon the Heritage Trail as the vehicle to display the history of African-American life of Cook's Corner, including St. Clair Walker High School and Middlesex County. The continued objective is to tell and display the stories of African-American life through various media, including pictures, testimonials, replicas, murals, and newsprint. However, most critical to the success of the project is the engagement of a professional historian researcher to unearth the past. While the committee members could be considered community elders, there's much that we do not know and cannot know. We also know that there's so much ground to cover that this project must proceed in stages. We now are addressing stage one that hopefully can be completed within 1 year or less. The committee has been in communication with several professional historians and is in the process of developing a request for proposal for a historian that would be distributed widely. And that request for proposal tentatively sets forth the proposed theme and subject areas to explore around that theme. I emphasize that what I am now saying is subject to change. The theme, as of now, history of African American life in Cook's Corner and its environs from Reconstruction 1865 to desegregation 1969. The subject areas to be explored include, and we're talking about people, places, and things, politics, which would incorporate voting, public office holders, activism, etc. Education, early church-supported schools, public schools, teachers, curriculum, etc. Property ownership would be another category to explore, as would be religion, as we focus on early churches, many of which provided these early schools for the children of the community, focusing on ministers, missions, etc. We also would be highlighting employment. That person who was employed, the entrepreneur, the business owner, and other ventures that may have been engaged in for the purposes of income. We also would be looking at the cultural and social life of the area. And of course, we would be considering the military life of African Americans during that period. Other stages would address the pre-1865 colonial, antebellum, and Civil War periods, as well as the post-1969 period that would include the Civil Rights era. The Heritage Committee is moving forward with great anticipation of what will be unearthed and then preserved. The committee also has the expectation of a continuing relationship with the Board of Supervisors during this process. As we say, we do want a seat at the table. And again, I thank you for allowing me to introduce ourselves to you.
Pat, I'd also like to thank you. Before this pandemic, we met at Pat's house, and she set up everything. And we had yearbooks and everything scattered around, looking at pictures, and she fed us and did everything like that, which she didn't have to do. But we appreciate that, and I would want to let the board know there has been a lot of work been done since 2017. Because if you hear from some other people, they'll say, "Hey, nothing's been doing. No, you haven't been doing anything." But there has been a lot going on, and there's still going to be a lot. So I appreciate you coming on aboard, telling the board members, exactly what's going on. Does anyone have anything for Ms. Satterfield?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to extend a hearty thank you to Pat as well. And Pat, anytime you want Wayne and I to come back to your house and feed us again, I will more than happily accept that invitation.
Why, thank you very much. And I have to confess that this is the first time that I have participated in a Zoom where I was not being seen. I don't know why. There's a box there. I don't know where I am. And I got all dressed for the occasion, as a matter of fact. But again, thank you.
Well, thank you.
As I start your video? Okay. Well, I can wave goodbye to you. Goodbye to you.
Oh, we see you.
There she is.
We see you. All right. Okay. Well, thank you. And it's good to see you. Good to see you. All right. At this time, let's take a 5-minute break because we're at our two-hour limit where we have to come back and log in again. So at this time, let's take a 5-minute break. Come back in 5 minutes, and then we can do roll call again.
And Wayne, when we reconvene, I think Mr. Chip Dix is next on the agenda.
Yes.
I'm going to be advancing a presentation on his behalf he had sent.
You say what now?
Well, there's a presentation, a PDF that he had sent in to Susan that he wanted to present to the board. I can advance those slides for him on his behalf.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We good. Wait till everybody gets back and then we can roll call.
Yeah, it's an informative presentation.
Matt, this is Chip. Thank you. And my video, I guess, is locked on your end.
Yeah, I'll unlock that, Chip. We normally don't have the videos on until someone's getting ready to present.
Gotcha. No problem.
I'll get Kevin to reset that for you.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Let me ask you, Matt. Yeah, I know you've got a number of other things on your agenda. We had talked about 10 minutes, but you want me to shorten it up a little bit?
I'll defer to the chairman on that.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on how much time?
Let me. Oh, that I had those computers over. Let me shut this door.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I don't necessarily need to walk through the slideshow. I can just talk about it and then leave those materials.
What was that now?
How much time do you want to allow Mr. Dix to make his presentation?
How long is it going to be?
Mr. Chairman, this is Chip Dix. I can shorten it up. I understood I had 10 minutes, but I can shorten it up and leave the materials with you because I know you have a number of other things on your agenda.
Right. Well, if it takes no more than 10 minutes, let me look at this agenda here. If you can do it within 10 minutes, we good.
Okay.
I'm looking at my agenda because after I look at that, we have oh yeah, we'll be good. We'll be good. It's 10 minutes, we'll be good.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate the courtesy.
And don't
Let's
forget.
see, all my board members are back. Oh, go ahead, Betty.
I was just going to say, don't forget your closed session that you're going to have to.
Right. Okay, yeah.
Betty, would
All
you?
right, Betty, everybody's back at this time. And at this time, could you give us roll call?
Mm-hmm. Mr. Koontz?
John, unmute your phone. I see him. I think he's in the store now right now. I can see him, but he's there. Unmute your phone. Roll call.
Mr. Koontz? Mr. Mansfield? You're muted, Mr. Mansfield.
Unmute.
We see you. There you go.
Can't hear you.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Here.
Mr. Jesse?
Here.
And Mr. Koontz is.
He was there. I mean, I saw him at one time, but
Yep.
he's probably listening, but got it all. All right. Well, we're back. And let me get my papers back together. Next, we have on the agenda is open road renewable with Drake Powers and Facility Project. We have Chip Dick with Gentry Lock Attorney, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So my name is Chip Dix, and I represent the Open Road team, and they're on the call with us, and I'll introduce them when we get to the last slide with their names and everything else. But they're all present and ready to assist. So this is a proposed energy storage project, and in terms of introduction and background, we're proposing to locate a 5-acre battery storage system called Drake Power in Middlesex County. And we took a look at the zoning ordinance, and it appeared to us that the utility provisions that talked about transmission and distribution were applicable. So we applied for a by right use. The staff didn't see it that way and felt like that we should go through a special exception process. And so we, under the law, just the staff needed to provide us a determination in 90 days. We're required to appeal within 30 days. But we appealed, and in our appeal notice that I suspect is in your package, what we did is ask that a hearing not be set before the Board of Zoning Appeals so that we could pursue a collaborative approach with the board, the Planning Commission, the county residents, and the staff. And we believe that, as indicated in Mr. Kretz's zoning administrator's determination, we believe that a text amendment to expressly recognize energy storage is a good thing. We have played around with some language that basically follows the model that you all used and adopted for solar projects. And so our next steps and what we wanted to do today is to say, first of all, we're not interested in pursuing the Board of Zoning Appeal process. And we hope that we can work out an acceptable zoning text amendment and then file an application for special exception. And then also request that the facility be determined substantially in accord with the comprehensive plan. So Matt, if we can move to the next slide, that'd be great. So the project is basically energy storage. And I've got some pictures here and 2 slides down that'll show you what it looks like. And energy storage is a new part of the Clean Economy Act that was passed by the 2020 General Assembly that allows a modernization of the electric grid. And so this project would be located on a 12-acre parcel at the intersection of Route 33 and Route 3 across the Dominion's existing Harmony Village electric substation. And so what would happen effectively, put it simply, is that electricity would be pulled off of the grid through the substation and then be stored at this battery facility. And then when the energy is needed, it would be reconnected to the substation and re-energized into the grid. So that's the way basically it would do. There's no generation here, unlike a solar project that might take 1,000 acres of property. This is going to be located on a 5-acre parcel within this 12-acre property that is owned by Open Road. And so it is completely different from a solar facility and has none of those generation context at all. What we do is we would add mature and use existing vegetative screening, and we would also add vegetative screening so people couldn't see these units that are behind all the trees and whatnot. The parcels, we've done a full study for wetland, cultural, wildlife resources, and there's no issues with that whatsoever. And the energy storage systems are safe. They have advanced monitoring safety features 24/7 electronically. They have advanced fire suppression systems. We always provide robust training for first responders and operators. And this poses no risk to groundwater because the units are completely encased with either a container or a building. So if we move to the next slide, that'd be great. So as I mentioned, we either got a 1-story warehouse type building, which we'll show here on the next slide, or groups of metal containers that appear similar to shipping containers that you would see either on the back of trains or on the back of trucks. There'd be a 100-foot setback from all adjacent parcel lines and rights of way, a lot of screenings I've mentioned already. And so it would be a 25-foot wide buffer, except for where you drive into the entrance and the electric line that goes in. The nearest residence is about 300 feet away on the opposite side of Route 33. So there's no homes near this project. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Matt. So this is a concept site plan. It shows the intersection of 33, as I mentioned. The green buffer is the 25-foot vegetative buffer around. Again, this is a 12-acre site with the battery storage containers or the building located within the interior 5 acres of the site. So again, this is stuff we would flush out with staff, obviously, before we came back to you, and we flush it out with the special use permit application, special exception rather, if we can go to the next slide. So next slide is what containers look like. And you can see what the containers look like, and they're all similar units. You can see the pads at the bottom. These are Tesla batteries. We may use Tesla batteries. We may use another supplier, but Tesla is one of the leading battery generators in the field and suppliers in the field for energy storage projects. We can flip to the next slide, please. So, and this is what a building would look like. It's basically a Butler type building that houses all the energy storage units on the inside. The right part shows you basically what the battery storage units look like, which are big servers is what they look like. So at any rate, all of that is gonna again be determined to some extent by site plan and also by all the energy storage projects under the Clean Economy Act have to be submitted for competitive bid. And the likelihood is that since Dominion owns the substation adjacent to this, that they would be the most likely purchaser of this energy storage system. If we can go to the next slide, please, Matt. So we've had some conversations, preliminary conversations with your Commissioner of the Revenue, and we've also done some background work. Basically, most energy storage projects that have capital investment are somewhere between $120 and $160 million. So depending upon the exact amount of the investment under the machinery and tools tax, you would get approximately $500,000 per year out of this 5-acre project. And that would be for the first few years, and your depreciation schedule would determine when the equipment would depreciate. But the M&T taxes would still apply on the depreciated equipment, and they would apply to your M&T rate set by your ordinance. The various different battery energy storage components, which again is what BEST stands for, will be replaced over time, which restarts the clock on the M&T tax program, as you know. And so this is preliminary analysis, and this would be based upon the likelihood that Dominion would own this particular asset. So if we can move to the next slide. So this is our contact information. I'm the one speaking, and Scott Foster is one of my colleagues at Gentry Lock. And Bob is a consultant to us. Cyrus is our CEO, and David is the Senior Vice President of Open Road Renewables. So here's our cell numbers and our contact information by email. And again, for any questions, we would encourage you to contact us. If we can go to the next slide for a minute. So, and the next one after that, probably. So just a comparison here, and then this is the last slide I'm going to talk about. So we've got time, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, for any questions that you might have. So generally for battery storage, you need 5 to 10 acres. And for solar projects, 800 to 1,000 is very common. I just finished working on a project for Open Road in King and Queen where we had 1,700 acres. It's a 150 megawatt project. The capital cost, as I mentioned before, for battery storage ranges in the neighborhood of 120 to 160 million. And it depends upon the duration of, if you will, the reliability of the battery and the expectation of obsolescence of the battery. And also for solar, you're looking at 80 to 100 million. Some of the solar projects on the larger ones that are close to 2,000 acres or more, closer to $150 million. So again, the primary function of the battery storage has nothing to do with electric generation. It has to do with taking existing energy off the grid, storing it at non-peak times, and injecting it back at peak times. And one of the things that battery storage does in terms of overall grid modernization is it allows you not to have to upgrade the transmission lines. And so if you diversify the grid and have solar projects and wind projects and other renewable projects throughout the state, and again, the Clean Economy Act says that all has to be done by 2045, then under that circumstance, it is a difficult thing to do that without upgrading transmission lines. So battery storage is a key part of not upgrading transmission lines. So there's other resources behind this in terms of appendices. I'll stop with that and wanted to cover that. But the bottom line is that what we'd like to do is to freeze frame the BZA appeal, had conversations with the staff and work out an acceptable text amendment. And we've been working on that draft already, and we believe that draft will be generally acceptable to staff because it models the language almost verbatim after your solar ordinance that you just adopted recently. And then we would prepare our special exception application and our comprehensive plan request, and we would go through your normal process to do that. We would go through the Planning Commission and the board, and it'd be our hope. You mentioned earlier about one of the decisions that was unanimous among the board. We'd like to think that we can build consensus on this project and be a unanimous decision at the time we get to the board. So with that, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'll stop and see if you have any questions or comments. And again, I've tried to stay within the 10 minutes, Mr. Chairman, as you requested.
Well, I would like to thank you for the presentation. Any board members got any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to mention I've been online the whole time. I just missed Betty roll call, so I'm here.
Right.
Mr. Dix, my question is a bit technical. This energy storage project, is it a PJM high frequency play, or is it just demand shifting? Or can you dig down a little bit further on that?
I'm gonna, if I could, ask Cyrus, our CEO, to comment to that. Cyrus, are you on?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Chairman and Commissioner Coons. The technology will be able to act, to shift demand, to do frequency response. It really is one of the advantages of battery storage is it can be whatever you need it to be at that time. So if a line goes down and suddenly there's the possibility of rolling blackouts, it can act as instantaneous generation. Or to your point, if there's grid services that are needed in PJM for reliability, it can serve those, or it can take peak demand and shift it to when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, just as a follow-up, is it fair to say to our constituents that this will increase grid reliability without exception, or is that an exaggeration?
No, that's exactly right. And this is, and Chip can probably talk more about the intent of the Clean Economy Act, but I think part of the intent of including battery storage in that legislation was to increase grid reliability and offset the need for large, expensive transmission upgrades.
That's correct.
Is the battery technology proposed understood already, or is that still being debated?
We're not specifying that at this time, but it's very, very likely to be Tesla or similar batteries that are basically the same batteries in your computer or your cell phone or electric car, but at a larger, stacking them on top of each other, a larger scale.
Is that phosphorus lithium ion, or it's just too early?
Yeah, lithium ion is the most common, most stable, most common, lowest cost at the moment. That's what's in the Tesla vehicles.
And finally, are there any other ancillary benefits to the community that we can tout to our constituents?
To be perfectly frank, these are fairly boring projects. They just sit there. There's not a lot of maintenance, traffic. They're low profile. We'll obviously screen this project, but it pays taxes without requiring substantial services, and that's really it. It looks like a warehouse, or as Chip said, a bunch of shipping containers that sit there. They don't move or make noise or produce emissions.
And can you give an order of the number of shipping containers and their lengths? Are we talking 10, 60 footers, 20? What can you give just the order of magnitude?
I can get you the specifics. If I recall, just in the Tesla version, it would be somewhere around 50 or so, but I can give you a better number when we're looking at the that stage of design.
And how far off the road, how long of an access road would you be contemplating, and how far off the road would you be siting the containers?
Yeah, so if we're, well, I guess we can't put it back up, but if you look at the existing transmission corridor, high voltage lines on the west side of the existing substation, kind of the northwest side, the access would just follow right underneath those lines between a tree line and that existing transmission corridor. I would guess it's maybe 300 or 400 feet because it's kind of a panhandle. If you look at the shape of that parcel. So
is Dave Kretz on? I can't.
He is, you just need to unmute Dave.
*6?
Yep, *6 or hit the mute button if you're on the computer. There he is.
Dave, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Our solar ordinance has a setback from the Fuller Highway of how much at this point? What's the distance?
1,000 feet for solar facilities in village, community, and general business.
So is that applicable here to the energy storage project?
That would have to be sorted out.
Okay. And then Keith Hodges passed legislation, I believe, last year in the General Assembly, allowing for proffers on solar projects in a way that's different than previously conceived. Do you know if those are applicable for energy storage?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Coons, I could answer that question because
Yeah, Mr. Dix could probably answer that better than I can.
Tom Schwartzweiler and I worked on that legislation together, and I represented the solar industry and he represented localities. And the language we drafted said that siting agreements apply to solar and storage. There's some dispute about that, and we have legislation that we're going to put in by this Friday in the General Assembly that would clarify that language to make it applicable to storage projects. And I've discussed that with Heather so that you all would know that there would be a legal vehicle by which we could work on, as you call it, proffers, but there wouldn't be proffers in that sense. There's also another piece of legislation. Keith Hodges carried that bill that you're referencing, the siting agreement bill. There's another piece of legislation that we wrote in the last session, and I represent the solar industry generally, in addition to Open Road. And we wrote legislation that Delegate Steve Heretic carried that basically, instead of having a rezoning that would trigger your ability at the county level to discuss proffers with a development applicant, we allowed a conditional use permit or a special exception to trigger the discussion of proffers that were reasonably related to the project and have a nexus with the project. So that was limited to solar. We also have legislation to allow that to include storage. So we anticipate that legislation, both pieces of legislation that I've just mentioned, would be successful in this General Assembly. But as we all know, particularly things being virtual and the General Assembly being the General Assembly, nothing's ever done till it's done. But we're not aware that we would have opposition to either one of those bills.
So in the spirit of working collaboratively towards unanimous approval at some point, would you make a point of keeping us apprised of the progress of those bills through the county administrator?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do so.
And when do you think, after those bills pass, should they pass, would you be able to forecast the other ancillary benefit to our constituency in the format of what that payment might look like?
So I think that what we need to do is we will know the session this year, as you may know, is likely to last only 30 days. And so assuming that's the case, then by mid-February, February 13th to be exact, the General Assembly would adjourn and finish its business in this so-called short session. By that point, we would know whether the legislation had passed. The governor would have 30 days to sign it. Again, if there's no opposition to that, we'd know by March. Certainly by the time that you're in your budget discussions as a board, we would know those answers. in terms of whether the legislation would be effective July 1 of that year or not. I do not anticipate that we would put emergency clauses on either one of those bills. So I think the answer is that we need to look at the total financial package as part of the discussion. And our thought process would be in the month of January, we work on the text amendment, if you will, with staff and find agreement on that. And then we file our application for special exception. And we also think that at that point, we'd file for a comprehensive plan. And I think it's important to realize, though, that if this project is generating $500,000 a year, it is going to be difficult to justify in a competitive RFP process. And I understand you know about solar yourself and understand the competitive nature of solar and the pricing of solar and everything else at this point. We anticipate the competitive pricing with respect to storage likewise to be a factor. And again, the Clean Economy Act legislation requires it to be competitively bid. So I don't know, just to be totally transparent on the front end with all of this, I don't know how much additional room there is in a siting agreement or a conditional use permit special exception bill applied to storage to provide the kind of money that otherwise would come from a much larger solar project that has a much bigger cash flow. So, but that's something that we're willing to discuss and put on the table and make sure, again, that we collaborate in a way that Middlesex is going to get whatever deal we can make on that. Then there's no playing, one county off another or anything like that. We're just, we can only do what the project will support and we'll make it through the RFP process, because otherwise, quite frankly, and I've seen this a little bit troublesome with some other projects where they don't pencil out on an RFP competitive basis. So, but I hear you, and we're certainly willing to talk about that as we go through the process.
And then Matt, would you mind providing Chip's contact information so that I can develop a direct relationship for further questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's in the presentation. I'll find it. Thank you, everybody.
It is. Thank you, Mr. Kuntz. Look forward to talking with you.
I have a very, excuse me, I've got a very quick question. As you look from the road, does this project not look more like a regular storage building than a solar farm?
Mr. Mansfield, I would say it looks nothing like a solar farm. And our intention is to make sure we have mature vegetation so you won't see anything. So, and again, you compare a solar farm to 1,000 acres, and we're talking about a battery storage component, whether we use the building or whether we use the containers, that would basically be on 5 acres. So it's a very small project compared to a solar project.
All right. You got any other board members that like to say anything? If not, I was just going to say, we're there's a process that goes on through the county, and at this time, we're just going to, as you say, digest right now, but not, and that's about it. Heather, you got anything to say?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, all right. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I want to know that we do have a path forward to investigate this. And I assume that we really won't know the answer to what we're looking at until the end of February or March. Am I correct on that?
Mr. Manfield, I think that our intention would be, in terms of next steps, to work with Dave and Heather and Matt and come up with a draft text amendment that would eliminate the ambiguity of what is a utility and involved in transmission and whatnot, which is how we find ourselves where we are. So I think the text amendment we can work on in January and hopefully come to some consensus on that. We would like to file our special exception application by February 1, and also our comp plan discussion. And then the legislation will go through the General Assembly as whatever happens with that. And we'll be able to start having discussions with this, in addition to staff, with the board and the Planning Commission about the project as a whole. So we would hope by springtime, we'd be in a position for all of us to have in-depth discussions and be able to hopefully, as I was suggesting earlier, have consensus on all these various details. So I believe that staff is, if we go through the process of text amendment and a special exception and the comp plan, that's an existing process. Once, and we do the text amendment simultaneous, so we would be able to act upon, you all would be able to act upon the project as we proceeded through your normal processes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to offer to Heather, Matt, and Dave, I'll be as involved as they'd like me to be. My new position in my private life, I'm actually going to be touring a battery container factory in Shreveport later this month. So I'm very much engaged in the battery industry.
Heather, my question to you, Heather, and this is a process to the BZA.
Yes, sir, there is a process to go
And
through.
it hasn't been done yet, has it?
No, sir, it hasn't. gone.
Okay, so we naturally, we need to work through our regular process and go like it is, because this is not by right, is it?
So it is Mr. Kretz's determination that this is not allowed by right in this particular zoning district. So there are two processes that the applicant can go through. The BZA is one. The other is through a collaborative approach with the text amendment that Mr. Dix is referring to. Both are legally available to the applicant and they are pursuing them.
Right. I think we just let it set, and then we make a, I'm not giving any decisions at this time.
No, sir, and that would be against my recommendation. This was
Right. No, we're not getting any decisions. We can talk or what all we want, but I would just like to thank you for the information. Okay, Mr. Dix.
Mr. Chairman, and that was the intent of today's presentation, was an informational presentation.
Right.
Not
Appreciate
asking the
that.
board to take any action. We'll
Right now.
continue to work with staff, and we look forward to working with you as we go through your process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
You too. All right, next, regular agenda items. We have a budget supplement request. Betty, that's on page 260 to 262.
Okay. The board, you may recall accepting this grant from the Port Authority in July. This is a reimbursement grant with no match required. The Planning District Commission administers the grant for the county. There was an agreement that was signed, accepted and signed there in July. For that, the county funds the expenses and we request reimbursement back from the Port Authority. Action on this supplement just puts the monies into the expense line so that we can spend it out, and then we'll request reimbursement back from the Port Authority, and that will go back into the dredging fund. So hopefully a wash there. So this is a supplement request for $150,000 coming out of the general fund, which has been set aside for the dredging projects, going into a capital improvement line. And then the next one is to a budget supplement for the CARES Act money that the county received for the broadband fast track program. The Broadband Authority used a consultant to apply for this funding and received $25,741. And like I said, this is part of CARES Act money. So it would go from the general fund into a new CARES line for broadband.
Okay.
And some of that money has already been expended. So on some projects.
Okay, so it's not, at this time, we have a motion to approve FY 2021 43 and 45 budget supplement request forms.
So moved.
I have a motion by John. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by John, second by Reggie. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye. All right.
Okay.
Next, Betty, you had the citizens appointment.
Yeah, and the only application that we have received this past month is from Selene Roden, who would like to be reappointed to the Economic Development Authority.
All right, do we have a motion for Selene Roden for economic development?
Move.
I have a motion by John. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by John, second by Pete. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Coons,
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield,
Aye.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough,
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye.
Okay.
All right, that is for you, Betty. All right, county administrator update. Matt.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I got a couple of items and I'll try to be quick because I'm cognizant of the time. Couple of updates. We have advertised a number of positions with the county. The board's aware that we have advertised for a building inspector and assistant county administrator. Wanted to give you a brief update on that. We've had a couple of really solid candidates for the.
Chair, I'm not hearing Matt.
Sorry?
He said he's not hearing you, Matt. Can you talk a little louder?
Yes. Is this good?
John might be in a bad area now from.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to yell at the board.
Yeah, well, he's frozen now, so he may be, by him driving along, he's probably in a dead spot.
Yeah.
Well, you go ahead, and I guess when he picks up in another area, he'll hear us.
Okay, well, we had a couple of very good, solid candidates and building inspectors. We conducted interviews. We may interview more. We're not 100%, but we've got a couple of candidates that we could, by consensus, agree to make a job offer for. Yet to be determined what kind of price range we're looking at. We're looking at, well, a couple of different candidates with different compensation needs. Probably have more information for the board between now and the next board meeting, and have a recommendation for you all as well. Also, the assistant county administrator position, been very pleased with the quality of the applicants for that. We have 3 to 5 potential candidates that would be great candidates for interview. And we hope to start conducting those interviews sometime early in January once we kind of make contact and check on what their needs are. Have not screened completely all of the maintenance worker applications we've got. They're still pending review. Hope to be completing that sometime in January as well, because we know John Blake's going to need the help on his maintenance force. So those applications are still under review. Quick update on the CCOC bids. We have a pre-bid meeting, I think, planned for January the 19th. Bids will be due January the 29th. Of course, the board's familiar with that project. That's where we're bidding out for the HVAC and with bid alternates for some window replacements and roof replacements on the old gym over at the Cook's Corner office complex, the old St. Clair Walker High School. Quick update for the Water Authority. All phases of the project are currently underway. We are starting to see pipes show up on the side of the road in Deltaville. Citizens are either very pleased or concerned that they're starting to see stakes be put in. And we're fielding many calls on that front. And the hat tip to Betty. I think Betty may have experienced maybe a day or two of free time over the holidays. She's been bearing the brunt of answering the phone calls on that. So thank you very much, Betty, for that. Contractors are having multiple crews work in multiple portions and sites on the project, I guess, concurrently. So you're going to see a lot of activity throughout the county for all phases of that project. And last but not least, we're going to be meeting with a Rosegill property owner to discuss some of the screening and aesthetics of the pump storage and well facility at Rosegill. That meeting's going to occur tomorrow. So Any questions on any of this, board members, please don't hesitate to stop me and ask. Long story short, some of this is going to be repeated too Friday when we give the update at the budget work session. Next update on HRSD and the county sewer projects. The topping PER currently underway with Timmons on the county's sewer collection system project and topping is near completion. We're going to be working with Timmons to run some financial models to prove sustainability on the fee structure that mirrors that of HRSD's, and probably have a lot more to report back on that to the board in February, God willing. And we have, of course, invited HRSD staff to attend the budget public hearing on Friday to give an overall update on the HRSD projects. Last but not least, and I'll just kind of complete this, I've got other items, but it's going on 6 o'clock and I know y'all probably want to grab some dinner. Y'all should have received budget calendar meeting invites via Susan Trainer, who's on the call. She sent out calendar invites for all of you for the budget processes. Highly encourage all of you to look through your emails and accept those calendar invites. That way you have the budget calendar kind of incorporated on your device and it can remind you of meetings. And I would just add that some of those meetings are tentative, but some are not. So if you have any difficulties with that, just reach out to Kevin or myself and we can kind of guide you through setting up a calendar, so to speak, on Outlook or whatever calendar software you utilize on your device. And last but not least, speaking of Kevin, we're working with IT. Glenn and Kevin have been really busy over the holidays trying to retrofit and upgrade the county boardrooms meeting facilities with more modern electronics, more audio-visual equipment and whatnot. We hope to be able to offer the board the option of having hybrid meetings where several board members decide to meet at the board meeting room and then others remotely via Zoom. It may be a meeting process that we incorporate into the budget process where we allow some public to attend the budget work sessions as we were before the pandemic and on a limited fashion with social distancing and room numbers being, of course, paramount concerns. Hopefully that work will be completed this week. I'm going to be meeting with Kevin either tomorrow or Thursday to maybe do a dry run. Wayne, we may want to invite you in just to, kind of give it a dry run too. Of course, you've been meeting via the conference room, but it may allow you and maybe one other board member or two other board members, depending, to meet there in the room and the courthouse meeting room along with staff for some of the budget stuff. And that may be preferable. Of course, it's entirely plausible and possible to continue these meetings via Zoom. And that's essentially my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody have any questions for Matt? If not, we're going to roll on. Hey, John, can you still hear us? Because I know you're going in and out sometimes. Good? Okay. All right. Yeah, good. I know you're driving in the dark. Be safe. All right. Next, we have unfinished and new business. Do anybody have any unfinished business?
Mr. Chairman, I think you might have skipped me.
Oh, I did? Hold on. Let me pick up. Did I skip something? Oh, I'm sorry. Heather. Sorry about that.
No worries.
County attorney update. I'm jumping the gun. County attorney update. Sorry about that, Heather. I skipped you.
No problem. It's been a long meeting. I just wanted to let the board know, as you recall at your last meeting, the sheriff's office wanted me to be working on a electronic summons systems ordinance. They've gotten a grant to implement that system, and I have prepared that and circulated it for them to review. And I hope to have that ready for the board's review at the next meeting. So I just wanted to let you know that that's in the works. It's a very simple ordinance that would allow the board to collect a nominal fee, $5 for criminal and traffic convictions. You can then use the money for the electronic summons systems. But I'll have that for you hopefully next month. And I just continue to be enthralled in the water project. So that's my update.
Okay, well, thank you, Heather. All right. Number 9, unfinished and new business. Do we have any unfinished business?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just give a report on Atlantic Broadband, which we'll call it unfinished until we stop getting complaints. They have made significant progress. The report I got from them today is that the callback feature, which was something that we suggested to them, has been fully implemented and has been very effective. They have also hired 20 new agents, customer service agents, which is half of their goal of hiring 40 new agents. Their hold times now, according to them, are now less than 30 minutes. That's down from 75 minutes last summer. Again, this is according to them, and that's also my experience personally. They said that although this is a big improvement, we're not doing a victory dance. We still have a long way to go. We're not satisfied with these times, but they are working to continue to make them better. That's my report on that.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have any new business?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I would like to introduce a proposal that would allow citizens of residential subdivisions to request a no gunfire danger in their residential communities. And I did send around a copy of what that proposal would look like. And I think I would like to get the acceptance of the rest of the group to put this proposal into effect. Is there anyone here that does not know what the proposal entails?
Well, the information, I know you had sent some out. I wish we had something that we could, look at, but.
I can read it to you if that would be of help, Mr. Chair.
All right.
If a residential subdivision, I don't have much light here, by the way, much better. If a residential subdivision with lot sizes less than 5 acres and not in an agricultural zoning supports the prohibition of outdoor shooting of firearms in their neighborhood for safety reasons, then they should take a vote of the property owners of the community. Number 2, if 2/3 or more of the owners in the community support the prohibition of shooting firearms, then the community shall submit the names and contact information of the persons who support the prohibition to the office of the Middlesex County Administrator. Number 3, county staff will then verify the names and property ownership. Upon verification of the names, the supervisor representing the community, upon verification of the names, the supervisor representing the community shall present the community's request to the Board of Supervisors. The board will then take a vote on the community's request to prohibit the outdoor shooting of firearms in their neighborhood because the area is so heavily populated as to make such conduct dangerous to the inhabitants. If the board indicates with a majority vote that it desires to consider the matter formally, then an ordinance will be drafted based on Virginia Code Section 15.2/1209 and adhering to all tenements of that code. Mr. Chair, I would like to submit this to the board.
Do any other board members have any discussion on this at the time?
I have, I looked that over, Pete, and I have some suggestions that would get me more comfortable with the language, which I could put up the red line here, but I don't think that that gives everybody adequate ability to evaluate that. My primary concerns are understanding exactly what is meant by residential community, because I still don't know whether that is a defined term that we can concretely determine whether somebody is or is not in a residential community. Am I in one, or are you in one? I don't know, because I don't know how that's defined. That's a primary question that I have about that proposal. And the second primary concern I have is that I feel that residents should have exhausted all alternative means if there is an issue. For example, if they have provision in their deed that there are covenants that are being violated, and that is the cause of this problem, that the residents of the residential subdivision do have some recourse using the covenants in their deed, and that they pursue that before enacting an ordinance and bringing that to the Board of Supervisors. So those are my primary concerns with that. I would suggest that maybe I share my red line with the other board members, and we come back and take another look at that at the next meeting.
Any other board members have anything to say? I'm gonna open it up.
I would like to see that red line, maybe via the county administrator, so you don't have to send 4 emails out. And my other thought is almost a question. You know, I had a dog incident in the Coves in Hartfield, and I consider us a residential community. We have an HOA. It's only residences and a clubhouse, tennis court, something like that. But you know, there was some need felt by the citizens of the Coves where they collected signatures in excess of 2/3, I believe, if memory serves, and they came to us and said we'd like a leash ordinance, and we passed that. So I'm not sure why there needs to be an additional layer if there's already a mechanism where if a community finds that their HOA doesn't have enough teeth to get, for instance, a leash law, or if they want to have golf carts be okay to ride in the community, I think there's already a mechanism where you can get enough signatures and bring that as the supervisor in your district to the board and say, this is what one community would like to do. So I guess that's my only question is this a necessary step? But I would like to see Lud's red lines and revisit it over time ahead of the next meeting.
Well, I can answer Lud's first statement. When I wrote this, when I said residential subdivisions, I'm talking about residential zoning. Subdivisions in a zoning of residential zoning. And I will be more than happy to hold off on this a month, I guess. But I would like the people in these subdivisions that feel unsafe because of gunshots, that they have some way of going that the county will protect them. And I think that in some cases, we just don't have that right now. As far as them already having, excuse me, as far as them already having something written into their written into their codes in their county, not in their county, but in their community. I don't think that most of them have it. If they do have it, then they should go ahead and do it. But I have not seen that in the two communities that have come to me to ask for it right now. Lud, what would you like added?
Well, why don't we get the red line distributed just in the interest of time, Pete? And that'll give you something to look at and everybody to look at and respond to. How about that?
I think that's a good idea. Just bring it back in 30 days and kind of tweak it, work on it. I think it'd be a good idea, in my opinion.
Very good.
Okay, now we went through that new business, old business. Now matters presented to the board. I'll shoot you, John, first, since I can't see you. You riding in the dark, but don't look at your phone. Keep your eyes on the road.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to bring up, almost as a placeholder for Matt, is whatever opportunities there are to pursue dredging funds. I want to make sure Mills Landing in Wake is on the list of various funding that we might be able to pursue. I'm not sure if we missed an opportunity last year or what. It's water under the bridge. I just want to make sure it's getting equal consideration, because that was a very popular project, but it also was very short-lived and it needs attention again. That's all I have there.
All right, thank you. Reggie?
I don't have anything right now.
All right. Pete?
No, thanks.
Lud?
Just a couple of good announcements. The Deltaville Tap and Raw Bar opened after relocating to the Deltaville Marina, and had a successful and safe opening on New Year's Eve. And also there will be a new restaurant, pizza restaurant opening in Deltaville. So good news on the business front.
All right, thank you. And myself, I think we've been zooming meetings and everything, but at the PDC, they did discuss about like battery storage. They have to be close to the grid. That like I know John already know all about that, but some people think that you can set them up anywhere, but really they got to be close to the main lines, to store that energy and put it back on the main line. And solar farms can't go just anywhere. I mean, major ones like that. And they talked about that at the meeting too, because I know that Matthews was thinking about if they could, generate some huge solar farms in those areas, but they can't because they don't have the lines to sustain the energy from it. All right, but that's it for me. Next, we'd like to go into executive session. At this time, Heather, could you read that 2.2-3711A1 or whatever it is?
Yes, sir. Good memory. So members of the board, you need a motion to convene in a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 for the specific discussion of personnel matters regarding your county administrator.
Did we lose you? I think we lost you, Heather.
Oh, no, sir. I'm here. Can you not hear me? Hello?
I hear you.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Now you hear me?
I'm here. Yeah, I think everyone else can hear me. It might be.
I hear you now.
Okay, I'll read it one more time. So we
Okay.
need a motion from the board to convene in a closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 for the specific discussion of personnel matters regarding the county administrator.
All right.
So moved.
We have a motion by John. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Reggie. A motion by John. Probably second by Reggie. Roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. All right. Kevin, we got to go into executive session.
He,
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
sir.
Kevin sent out a link to everybody, Mr. Chairman, and just a real quick question. Do you want me to join you right away, or do you want me to wait until y'all ask me to come in?
No, well, you can, really, if you want to, do all the board, well, do all the board members know why we're going into executive session, number one?
Well, why don't we wait and have that conversation in the executive session? We know
Okay,
why we're
all right.
going.
Let's go in executive session, then you just come on in, Kevin. We get you, I mean, not Kevin, Matt, we call you in, okay?
All right.
All right.
and Kevin had sent you a link in the chat bar that you would need to click to go in.
Yep. Everyone should have a link in the chat, and then the password is also in that chat message. So we'll
Okay.
see you on the other side. Wayne, you got yours. I can jump on there and do that one if you like.
If mine's in the chat box, if I got two, and I'm a 2 on it, just do it, or you gonna do it? You want me to just
Go ahead
hit
and
it?
click it. Yeah, go
Huh?
ahead and hit it.
I'll
Yep,
hit
hit
it.
it.
I'll go ahead and do it. Let me.
And I'm gonna
Okay.
pause the recording.
Okay, I got it, Kevin. I'll just go on in.
All right. Mr. Williams, do you see it?
Yeah, I don't hear it. I'm gonna make sure I get the right place.
Okay.
Kevin, can you pause the YouTube?
Not really. I can stop it if you'd like me to.
Hmm.
I'll stop it because I think when we come back, it's going to be just adjourning, right?